Chapter 1008. To Little Nine, this kind of battle was still a little too early. However, Little Nine's appearance had indeed helped Chu Fumian greatly. Chu Fumian looked at the four old ancestors of the Six Paths demon sect with murderous intent in his eyes. Chu Fumian, had never been forced into such a desperate situation in this life. The four old ancestors of the Six Paths demon sect had completely enraged Chu Fumian. "For old fogies, are you ready to die?" Chu Fumian said coldly. He didn't hide his murderous intent at all. "You're still talking big when you're about to die? Kid, your demonic beast has lost all its strength. What makes you think you can fight us?" Withered Bones sneered when he heard Chu Fumian's words. Little Nine had lost its strength. Chu Fumian's current situation wasn't any better. 1 against 4? No matter how heaven-defying Chu Fumian was, he wouldn't be a match for the four of them. "We've dragged this out for a long time. Let's not waste any more time talking to this kid. Otherwise, he might encounter something strange again. Let's suppress him first to prevent future troubles." Nine Abyss said coldly. Little Nine's appearance was already beyond their expectations. They weren't sure if Chu Fumian would encounter something strange again. Suppressing Chu Fumian was the most important thing. Six Demons' God's Sealing Palm. Withered Bones attacked again with the Six Demons' God's Sealing Palm. Nine Abyss, Thousand Change Prince, and Geely didn't hesitate to add their strength to the Six Demons' God's Sealing Palm. Rumble, rumble. Demonic intent surged and thunder rumbled. "Kid, let's see who's going to save you this time." Demon Emperor looked at Chu Fumian with a sinister smile. He hated Chu Fumian to the core. He had been standing in the arena, waiting for the moment Chu Fumian fell. Little Nine's sudden appearance had saved Chu Fumian's life. However, this was the only time he could save Chu Fumian. Chu Fumian was doomed to die this time. "Suppress me? Just you four old fogies? Break." Facing the Six Demons' God's Sealing Palm, Chu Fumian's lips curled into a cold smile. The titanic watchtower godly sword in his right hand suddenly emitted a strange sword light. The sword light gradually fused into Chu Fumian's body. Extreme Sword Seal open. In an instant, a dazzling sword light erupted from Chu Fumian's body. Even Ancestor Wu could not see this sword light clearly. On Chu Fumian's back, the mark of a spiritual sword that could penetrate heaven and earth flashed past. Extreme Sword Seal was the seal of the Lord of the Sword's Master. The true power of the titanic godly sword could only be unleashed by opening the Extreme Sword Seal. Earlier, when Little Nine attacked, Chu Fumian stood motionless in order to open the sword seal. Now that the seal had been opened, the true power of the titanic gate godly sword was revealed. For it to be called a godly sword, the power of the titanic gate godly sword was not as simple as it appeared. The titanic divine sword radiance supported Chu Fumian's body. His realm was rising steadily. In the blink of an eye, Chu Fumian had stepped into the destiny realm. "You're dead meat this time." Chu Fumian sneered. Although the heart-refining realm was only one level away from the destiny realm, it was the boundary between a great ancestor and an emperor. In terms of strength, 10 great ancestors in the heart-refining realm were no match for one emperor in the destiny realm. Under the support of the titanic divine sword radiance, Chu Fumian felt that his strength began to rise dozens of times faster. It was the strength of an emperor. What's going on? Why did his strength suddenly rise? Withered Bones Demon Venerable, Thousand Transformations Prince, and the others were shocked. They also noticed that Chu Fumian had stepped into the heavenly mandate realm. Chu Fumian in the heart, refining realm, could defeat great ancestor Wu. Once he stepped into the destiny realm, his strength would increase dozens of times. How terrifying would Chu Fumian's strength be? Withered Bones Demon Venerable, Thousand Transformations Prince, and the others wanted to retreat. However, they couldn't when they looked at the Demon Emperor. They could only bite the bullet and attack. "Forget it. Let's suppress him first." Boom! Withered Bones Demon Venerable and the others pushed their strength to the limit. Their spiritual energy, skills, and trump cards were all used to support the Six Demons' God's Sealing Palm. The success or failure of this battle depended on this palm. "No one can save the four of you today. You want to suppress me? All of you break. Chu Fengmian held the titanic divine sword and took a step forward. He faced the incoming 6 demons god sealing palm and slashed out. The sword radiance split the sky and the earth. Even space was torn apart. Boom! The 6 demons god sealing palm collided with the sword radiance and shattered on the spot. There was no stalemate. The combined power of the 4 of them was like an ant in front of Chu Fengmian. Not good. Withered Bones demon venerable and the others spat out a mouthful of blood. It wasn't blood red, but gold. Life source realm. This golden blood was their life essence blood, the foundation of their strength. Under Chu Fengmian's sword, they were forcibly shaken out. This would have an indelible impact on their strength. Let's retreat first. There's still time. This kid's strength has skyrocketed. He must have used some method. Anyway, the 7 sects won't let him go. We don't have to fight to the death with this kid. Withered Bones demon venerable shouted. His figure retreated continuously. The remaining 1,000 transformations prince, Geely demon venerable, and 9 abyss demon venerable did the same. They didn't want to fight to the death with Chu Fengmian. Moreover, under the current situation, even if they died, they wouldn't be able to drag Chu Fengmian down with them. Demon Emperor run. Withered Bones demon venerable quickly retreated and grabbed the remaining 3 incarnations of the Demon Emperor. He planned to break the restriction of the arena and leave. You still want to leave? Since you're all here, stay here. Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a cold smile. With a sneer, Chu Fengmian moved. His escape light was dozens of times faster than before. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Withered Bones demon venerable. However, Chu Fengmian didn't attack Withered Bones demon venerable. Instead, he slashed at the remaining 3 incarnations of the Demon Emperor with the titanic godly sword. Apart from Withered Bones demon venerable and the others, the Demon Emperor was Chu Fengmian's greatest threat. Since Chu Fengmian couldn't kill the Demon Emperor's true body, he had to destroy his incarnations and reduce his talent to the minimum. Not good. Protect Demon Emperor. Demon Emperor run. Chapter 1009. Chu Fengmian didn't care about the 4 ancestors of the 6 Paths demon sect. He wanted to kill the Demon Emperor first. The remaining 3 incarnations of the Demon Emperor, Withered Bones demon venerable, and the others have been famous experts for a long time. They had lived for thousands of years, which was why they had such strength. The Demon Emperor was only in his 30s, 10 years older than Chu Fengmian. With his nirvana divine body, the Demon Emperor's strength would increase by 5 times compared to the other geniuses. Although Chu Fengmian couldn't kill the Demon Emperor today, he had to kill the other incarnations and destroy the Demon Emperor's nirvana divine body. The Demon Emperor was frightened when he saw Chu Fengmian's sword. No matter how he calculated, Chu Fengmian would definitely die today. The 4 ancestors of the 6 Paths demon sect were no match for Chu Fengmian. The Demon Emperor felt humiliated when he was defeated by Chu Fengmian. But now he had been surpassed. He couldn't wait to kill Chu Fengmian. He had set up countless schemes, and today was the best opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian. He didn't want to give up. Leave now, Holy Emperor. He must die today. The 7 sects won't let him go. The Withered Bones demon venerable seemed to have guessed the Demon Emperor's thoughts and shouted at him. Hearing this, the Demon Emperor suddenly came to his senses. His face revealed a sinister expression as he shouted loudly. I admit, once he admitted defeat, the Demon Emperor would be teleported out of the arena, and he could leave immediately. Chu Fengmian couldn't chase after him under the watch of the 7 sections. But when the Demon Emperor opened his mouth, suddenly, Chu Fengmian's sword chi began to change as it approached the Demon Emperor. In an instant, it turned into a rope. It wrapped around the Demon Emperor's mouth. No matter how hard the Demon Emperor tried, he couldn't say the last word of I admit defeat. You want to admit defeat? Do you think I'll give you the chance? You must kill all 3 of your incarnations today. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly and slashed out with his sword. Bang! Bang! 2 figures suddenly rushed in front of Chu Fengmian. The Withered Bones Archfiend and the 1,000 Transformations Prince rushed to the front of the Demon Emperor and gathered all of their spirit power to block Chu Fengmian's sword. "You two pieces of trash dare to block my sword? Juke." Chu Fengmian smiled disdainfully. The Titanic Gate divine sword in his hand was enraged. The Titanic Gate divine sword was filled with disdain. It had killed countless ancestral ancestors. How could Devil Sovereign Withered Bones and the 1,000 Transformations young Sir possibly block the Titanic Watchtower Godly Sword? The gigantic crescent Godly Sword's edge suddenly became 100 times sharper, and a terrifying sword chi rushed towards the sky. This sword chi was over 100,000 feet long. As soon as it appeared, it covered the sky and covered the earth. The dry-boned demon sovereign and 1,000 change prince were sucked into the sword chi, bearing the brunt of its sharpness. In the blink of an eye, the bodies of the two shattered in the air, turning into a lump of minced meat. It was unknown how many pieces they had been cut into by the sword chi. Even so, the two lumps of minced meat continued to fly outwards, trying to escape from the sword chi. With the ancestral ancestors' realm, they could recover even if only a finger was left. But how could Chu Fengmian give them a chance to escape? With a thought, Chu Fengmian's sword chi erupted into a terrifying storm. The Withered Bones Archfiend and the 1,000 Transformations Prince's bodies were directly destroyed by the storm, leaving behind only a cloud of blood mist in the air. It could be said that they couldn't be more dead. Even in a mortal realm, ancestral ancestor couldn't be saved in such a manner. "Devour!" Chu Fengmian shouted, and the storm engulfed the Withered Bones Archfiend and the 1,000 Transformations Prince's essence blood, completely devouring it. The two of them had been famous for a long time, old antiques who had lived for thousands of years. Their essence blood was extremely pure, several times stronger than that of the Demon Emperor's incarnation. As Chu Fengmian devoured them, the divine tree cheered and began to rapidly refine their essence blood. The Withered Bones Archfiend and the 1,000 Transformations Prince. These two demonic Dao giants were famous ancestral ancestors in the 9 regions. Now, they had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. "Run! Run!" 9 Abyss Archfiend and Geely Archfiend were already scared out of their wits. The two of them didn't care about the Demon Emperor. With a flicker of their bodies, they broke through space and left the ancient arena without looking back. Of the 4 ancestral ancestors of the 6 Paths Demon Sect, 2 were dead and 2 fled. Only Chu Fengmian and the Demon Emperor's 3 incarnations were left in the arena. You. The Demon Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian with fear in his eyes. The Withered Bones Archfiend and the 1,000 Transformations Prince had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. This was something he couldn't even imagine in his wildest dreams. Chu Fengmian was 10 years younger than him. But now, Chu Fengmian had completely surpassed him. All his confidence and dignity were mercilessly destroyed in front of Chu Fengmian. "Chu Fengmian, how about I tell you a secret?" Suddenly, the Demon Emperor's eyes glinted with a strange light. "I know that you once went to the House of Storms. I also know who you met in the House of Storms. If you still want to see her, you must let me go. Otherwise, I'll make sure you never see her again." Others couldn't understand what he meant, but Chu Fengmian heard it clearly. She was referring to Luo Shi. Luo Shi is in the 6 Paths Demon Sect. Chu Fengmian stared coldly at the Demon Emperor. When he left the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, Luo Shi wanted to leave and return to the 6 Paths Demon Sect. Luo Shi's inheritance was in the 6 Paths Demon Sect. If she wanted to betray the 6 Paths Demon Sect, she had to get the Succubus Demon Sect seed of inheritance. But now, it seemed that Luo Shi's identity had been exposed. "What do you think? Chu Fengmian, let my 3 incarnations go today, and I can promise you I'll spare her life. Otherwise, I'll kill her right now." The Demon Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian and said word by word, "And I want you to admit defeat. Are you threatening me?" Murderous intent flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. It had been a long time since anyone dared to threaten Chu Fengmian. "So what if I'm threatening you? If you want Luo Shi to live, admit defeat and obediently come to the 6 Paths Demon Sect." The Demon Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian and said viciously, "You know very well what you should do." The Six Paths Demon Sect? I'll go. As soon as Chu Fengmian finished speaking, the tip of his sword suddenly locked onto the three incarnations of the Demon Emperor. Chapter 1010. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly, ignoring Demon Emperor's threat. The sword in his hand suddenly moved, emitting dazzling sword light. The sword light pierced through Demon Emperor's three avatars without hesitation. What? The Demon Emperor couldn't understand why Chu Fengmian would actually attack and kill him at such a time. He didn't care about his threat at all. I, Chu Fengmian, have never been threatened in my life, Chu Fengmian said coldly. With a slash of his sword, Demon Emperor's three avatars shattered on the spot, turning into pure blood mist. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and devoured all of Demon Emperor's essence blood. Demon Emperor wanted to threaten Chu Fengmian to make him not dare to attack, but he was too naive. Given Chu Fengmian's character, no one could threaten him. Demon Emperor's threat only intensified Chu Fengmian's killing intent. Moreover, Chu Fengmian didn't believe that Demon Emperor could really kill Luo Shi. Luo Shi was wearing Venerable Kanglin's Kanglin immortal armor, and Chu Fengmian had left a force in her. If Luo Shi was in danger, Chu Fengmian would know. Therefore, Chu Fengmian knew that Luo Shi wasn't in much danger now. However, since Demon Emperor knew about the House of Storms, Luo Shi's current situation was not good. It seemed that Chu Fengmian had to make a trip to the Six Paths Demonic Gates. Chu Fengmian had made up his mind. He had to go to the Six Paths Demonic Gates. Luo Shi was his woman. If Luo Shi hadn't saved him in the House of Storms, Chu Fengmian might have died on the spot. Chu Fengmian had to go. So what if it was the Six Paths Demonic Gates? Chu Fengmian would definitely rescue Luo Shi. Before that, there was one more thing he had to do. The reward of the 9 Regions Genius Battle. Chu Fengmian came to participate in the 9 Regions Genius Battle because of the reward. Demon Emperor, Jian Zhanxian, and the others came for the same reason. The 1 million Emperor Great Spirit Stones were nothing to Chu Fengmian, so he naturally didn't care about it. However, Chu Fengmian had to obtain Tianchong's essence blood. The battle dragon technique that Chu Fengmian cultivated had almost completely transformed his bloodline into the ancient battle dragon's bloodline. Progenitor Tianlong was the progenitor of all dragons in this world, a connate divine beast. A drop of his essence blood was extremely useful to Chu Fengmian, even a great fortune. There was also the myriad treasure Heavenly Jade Talisman, which was an even more precious treasure. Chu Fengmian had to obtain both of these treasures. Once Chu Fengmian obtained these 2 treasures, his strength would be able to take another step forward. He might even be able to break through to the fate boundary and become a ruler. When Chu Fengmian defeated the 4 great ancestors from the Six Paths Demon Sects, he displayed the strength of a ruler, but he relied on the Titanic Gate Divine Sword's sword light to forcefully support him. In reality, this power did not belong to Chu Fengmian. It was a power borrowed by Chu Fengmian, yet it was enough to erupt with such terrifying power. Once Chu Fengmian broke through to the Heaven's Mandate Realm, his overall strength would undergo an earth-shattering change. Chu Fengmian, who could use the Titanic Gate Divine Sword's sword light, would be several times stronger. By then, Chu Fengmian would not be far from killing the 7 sects and avenging the Master of Sword Dao. While Chu Fengmian was thinking about his next move, the arena was also silent. Chu Fengmian's ruthlessness was beyond the expectations of countless people. They could not hear what the Devil Emperor and Chu Fengmian were talking about. However, judging from the Devil Emperor's expression, he seemed to be threatening Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian did not care at all and killed all of the Devil Emperor's clones on the spot. All of the Devil Emperor's clones had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. Although everyone knew that the Devil Emperor had a Nirvana divine body, he was still alive even if all of his clones were killed. However, Chu Fengmian was the only one left in the arena. After a long time, the ancient gladiator arena suddenly made an announcement. The champion of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, Chu Fengmian. Everyone present knew that Chu Fengmian deserved the title. Chu Fengmian had defeated Jian Zhanxian and the Devil Emperor all the way. He had even defeated the joint forces of 4 forefathers by himself. This kind of strength was considered to be at the peak of the forefathers of the immortal realm. It would be abnormal if Chu Fengmian, with such strength, could not win the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. However, countless pairs of eyes looked at enlightened GNK in the 7 sections. For the past 10,000 years, the 9 Regions Genius Tournament had been controlled by the 7 sections. This time, Chu Fengmian had won first place in the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, which was a slap to the 7 sects' faces. Once the rewards were taken out, the 7 sects would bleed a lot. It's better to give out the rewards of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. Chu Fengmian stood on the arena and looked at Reverend GNK in the air as he slowly spoke. The rewards of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament should be in the hands of enlightened Jian Quebec. But now, it seemed that enlightened GNK had no intention of handing out the rewards. Could it be that the 7 sects want to go back on their word? Everyone in the stands could see that enlightened GNK's actions were somewhat unusual. According to the previous tournaments of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, the moment the champion was announced, the rewards would be sent directly to the arena. But this time there was no such thing. Enlightened GNK's eyes flickered as he faced Chu Fengmian, as if he was thinking about something. Even Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a hint of a cold smile. It seemed that the 7 sects were planning to go back on their word in the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. Chu Fengmian, the Tianjin sect will not give you the rewards of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. Enlightened GNK looked at Chu Fengmian, his eyes flickering. The rewards of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament will not be given to an unknown person like you. Enlightened GNK deliberately looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, Chu Fengmian, we've investigated you. Your identity is very strange. Tell us, where did you come from? As long as you tell us who you are, we will give you the rewards of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. Tell me who I am? I am Chu Fengmian. Don't you know? Chu Fengmian looked at enlightened GNK and said coldly. Chapter 10:11. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed coldly at enlightened GNK's words. It seemed that the people from the 7 great sects had seen through some clues. Chu Fengmian's rise was too shocking. A year ago, Chu Fengmian was still an unknown figure in a remote country called Wuxing Nation. A year later, Chu Fengmian was already standing on the stage of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. He had even won first place. This kind of rising path was really too shocking. With the ability of the 7 great sects, it was naturally easy for them to find out all of this. His rate of growth was countless times faster than the Devil Emperor's. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian was able to use the Titanic Godly Sword to break the seal on the Titanic Godly Sword. All of this was enough to make the 7 great sects suspicious. However, Chu Fengmian wouldn't admit that he was once the disciple of the Lord of Sword Dao. If the 7 great sects found out that Chu Fengmian was the Lord of Sword Dao's disciple, the Sword Dao sect's Wushang forefather wouldn't let Chu Fengmian off. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid. Quietly, Chu Fengmian began to gather spiritual power. His current strength was no longer that of a junior who could be trampled on. Even the 7 great sects would have to pay a great price to kill Chu Fengmian. We don't care about such a trivial reward. Enlightened Jian Ke looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous intent. He was already guessing Chu Fengmian's identity. However, we can't create an enemy. Moreover, your origin is too strange. We suspect that you're a remnant of some ancient demonic sect, or even a spy of the Dragon Clan. Enlightened Jian Ke looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, Chu Fengmian, I'll give you a chance. Open your spiritual awareness and let us see. If you're not a spy of the ancient demonic sect or the Dragon Clan, the reward will still be yours even if you're an enemy of the 7 great sections. Open his spiritual awareness? Chu Fengmian's heart turned cold when he heard enlightened GNK's words. Opening his spiritual awareness meant that he had to reveal all of his fortuitous encounters and all of his trump cards to everyone present. Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounters alone were enough to make countless experts of the 9 domains view him as a piece of juicy meat. Moreover, once he opened his spiritual awareness, Chu Fengmian's identity might be exposed. Open spiritual awareness? There has never been such a rule in the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. There was anger in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chu Fengmian's strength would increase by leaps and bounds once he obtained Tianchong's essence blood. When he truly stepped into the heaven's mandate realm, Chu Fengmian wouldn't even be afraid of being besieged by Wushang forefathers. But now, Taoist Jin Ke wanted to erase all of Chu Fengmian's benefits, not leaving him a single bit. Rules? The words of the seven great sects are the rules. Chu Fengmian, do you think we will still bargain with you? Today, you don't have any other choice. Open your spiritual sense and let us check your identity. Enlightened Jin Ke looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly. His words were like an order, not giving Chu Fengmian the slightest chance. The 9 Regions Genius Tournament had come to an end. In the ancient gladiator arena, the restrictions on the arena had also disappeared. The Wushang forefathers of the 7 great sects moved at the same time. Countless figures surrounded Chu Fengmian. There were a total of 27 figures around Chu Fengmian, all of them looking at him coldly. These figures were the Wushang forefathers of the 7 great sections. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent, as if they were about to attack and kill Chu Fengmian at any moment. Clearly, the 7 great sects didn't intend to give Chu Fengmian a reward this time. They wanted to keep him in the arena forever. Open my spiritual sense? Impossible. Chu Fengmian looked at the Wushang forefathers of the 7 great sects with cold eyes. It seemed that the 7 great sects had long planned to deal with Chu Fengmian. 27 Wushang forefathers was a huge number for the 7 great sections. If it weren't for Chu Fengmian, they wouldn't have mobilized so many Wushang forefathers. Is that so? Then don't blame us. Before we get to the bottom of this, we'd better invite you to our 7 great sects as a guest. We'll naturally let you go after we get to the bottom of this. Enlightened Jin Ke's murderous intent surged. At this point, he no longer cared about the reputation of the 7 great sections. He was only suspicious of Chu Fengmian's identity, but the strength that Chu Fengmian had displayed was enough to make the 7 great sects wary. If Chu Fengmian had been considered a small nuisance in the past, then ever since Chu Fengmian had defeated the 6 Paths Demon Sect and joined forces with the 4 Wushang Patriarchs, Chu Fengmian had become a threat to the 7 great sections. This made Enlightened Jin Ke want to kill Chu Fengmian. He couldn't let Chu Fengmian leave alive today. Visit the 7 great sects? Everyone present clearly understood that once Chu Fengmian went to the 7 great sects, the 7 great sects could casually fabricate an identity and kill Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian stood in the arena and looked at the faces of the 7 great sects with murderous intent. It seemed like the 7 great sects hadn't changed at all compared to 10,000 years ago. From the looks of it today, it was unlikely that he would be able to leave safely. Gu Jin, hurry up and leave. Chu Fengmian looked at Gu Jin, who was standing at the edge of the arena. With a thought, he summoned Yunyu Heavenly Palace and sent Gu Jin to Yunyu Heavenly Palace. Enlightened Jin Ke saw all of this, but he had no interest in stopping it. The only person they had to deal with was Chu Fengmian and Yunyu Heavenly Palace. Once Chu Fengmian fell, he wouldn't be a threat to the 7 great sects at all. After sending Gu Jin away, Chu Fengmian no longer had any scruples. He glanced at the Wushang progenitors around him and said word by word, Great, great. I didn't expect the 7 great sects to be so unruly. Rules? The words of the 7 great sects are the rules. Another Wushang forefather of the desolate ancient sect looked at Chu Fengmian malevolently and said, Kid, it's time for you to return what you stole from the desolate ancient sect. Chu Fengmian recognized this Wushang forefather of the desolate ancient sect. He was the one who had chased after Chu Fengmian in the Sacred Tree Realm. Chapter 10:12. Back then, Chu Fengmian almost died in the hands of old Ancestor Wu. He was the one who nurtured the young Tree of God. Later on, Chu Fengmian took it away from him. This made old Ancestor Wu hate Chu Fengmian to the extreme. Others might not know why Chu Fengmian's body was so strong, but he knew that it was all because of the Tree of God in Chu Fengmian's body. He had already merged with the Tree of God. When the Builder Tree was still around, countless innate divine beasts in the ancient Barrens continent fought against it, but they could not break it. In the end, It was the builder tree that broke the Baron's continent. The benefits of merging the tree of God into Chu Fengmian's body were immense. He had painstakingly nurtured the divine tree so that it could recognize him as its master and merge with his body after the nurturing was complete. He did not expect Chu Fengmian to take it away from him. His 1,000 years of nurturing had all gone to Chu Fengmian. How could he not be angry? How could he not hate Chu Fengmian? Qing Huang, what's going on? As soon as Qing Huang's spiritual master spoke, the other old ancestors of the ancient Baron sect were shocked. They did not expect Qing Huang's spiritual master to have a grudge against Chu Fengmian. He is the one who sneaked into the ancient Baron's sect's tree of God's secret realm and stole my tree of God and countless jade, sacred fruits. Qing Huang's spiritual master said angrily. What? He is the one who stole the tree of God and countless jade, sacred fruits? The other old ancestors of the ancient Baron's sect shouted in shock when they heard Qing Huang's spiritual master's words. They looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous intent. Back then, a martial artist had sneaked into the divine tree of God's secret realm and stole countless jade, sacred fruits. He even stole the tree of God that Qing Huang's spiritual master had nurtured. The ancient Baron's sect had been trying to find out who did it, but to no avail. Today, when Qing Huang's spiritual master saw Chu Fengmian, he immediately recognized that the martial artist who had sneaked into the divine tree of God's secret realm was Chu Fengmian. Back when Chu Fengmian sneaked into the divine tree secret realm and seized countless jade, sacred fruits, the desolate ancient sect had paid a huge price. Dozens of desolate ancient sacred fruits were enough to create dozens of ancestors. Kid, hand over everything you took from the divine tree secret realm. Qing Huang's spiritual master looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a ferocious expression, hand it over obediently, and we'll spare you some physical pain. Qing Huang, you're not the only one who has a grudge against this brat. The Tianjin sect also has a grudge against him. Don't waste your breath on him. Let's suppress him first and interrogate him. He has too many secrets. Spiritual Master Jian Ke glanced at Spiritual Master Qing Huang beside him. Then his gaze fell on Chu Fengmian. Capture him. Suddenly, the 4 supreme ancestors of the Tianjin sect around Reverend Jian Ke took the initiative to attack. Boundless spiritual energy swept through everything as the 4 sword lights approached Chu Fengmian. The moment the sword lights of the supreme ancestors of the Tianjin sect slashed out, the space of the ancient fighting arena was torn apart. The 4 dazzling sword lights approached Chu Fengmian at the same time and slashed at his chest. At the same time, Chu Fengmian noticed that the supreme ancestors of the other sects did not attack. They were not watching from the sidelines. Instead, they were paying attention to the spiritual energy fluctuations around Chu Fengmian. It seemed that the 7 sects already knew that Chu Fengmian had the Cloud Feather Palace and could break the space to leave at any time. After all, Chu Fengmian was able to escape from the hands of Ancestor Qing Huang because of the Cloud Feather Palace. Therefore, the remaining supreme ancestors were quietly gathering their spiritual energy and began to seal the ancient fighting arena. Under such circumstances, Chu Fengmian was like a bird trapped in a cage. Unless he could break the seal of the ancient fighting arena, it would be extremely difficult for Chu Fengmian to escape. More than 20 supreme ancestors joined forces to seal the space. It seems that the 7 sects really think highly of me. Chu Fengmian's eyes were somewhat cold. There was no trace of fear, only an extremely terrifying battle intent. With your essence and blood, my strength will be further improved. Juk attack. In an instant, the Juk godly sword in Chu Fengmian's right hand condensed a dazzling sword light. Layers of spiritual energy supported Chu Fengmian's body. It caused Chu Fengmian's aura to rise steadily. He stepped into the destiny realm. Juk sword light. This person can really use the full power of the Juk godly sword. Even though it was not the first time that they saw it, the supreme ancestors of the Tianjin sect were still extremely shocked. When Chu Fengmian used the Juk godly sword light to deal with the supreme ancestors of the 6 demonic sects, they could only watch from afar. The aura they felt was, of course, completely different from when they were face to face. The Juk godly sword had been in the Tianjin sect for 10,000 years, but no one could comprehend how to use the true power of the Juk godly sword. Therefore, it was only used as a heaven-level spiritual weapon. Now, that Chu Fumian had obtained the Juk godly sword, he could use the true power of the Juk godly sword within a day. All of this was unusual. This person's identity is very likely to be related to the Sword Dao sect. Everyone, don't hold back. Otherwise, sooner or later, it will be a big problem for the 7 sections. Spiritual Master Jian Ke said coldly. When he mentioned the Sword Dao sect, there was a hint of fear in his voice. Only the people of the 7 great sects could understand the glory of the Sword Dao sect from the ancient books from 10,000 years ago and the oral narration of the experts of the generation. The Sword Dao sect. When the supreme ancestors of the other 7 sects heard these 4 words, they were also shocked. A look of astonishment flashed in their eyes. The name of the Sword Dao sect was taboo among the 7 sections. It represented a bloody battle 10,000 years ago. In that battle, the 7 sects had paid a great price. Jian Ke, are you sure this person is related to the Sword Dao sect? One of the ancestral patriarchs from the Sage Monarch sect asked. In all likelihood, the Juk godly sword used to belong to the Sword Dao sect. The Tianjin sect has been unable to comprehend its mysteries for 10,000 years. Now that this person can use the Juk godly swordlight, he must be related to the Sword Dao sect. Spiritual Master Jian Ke said slowly. Chapter 10:13. Sword Dao sect. Sword Dao sect. When they heard these 3 words, all the great ancestors of the 7 major sects showed some seriousness in their eyes. On the phone, even the great ancestors of Tianshu Hall and Medicine King Valley didn't have such a big grudge against Chu Fumian. After all, most of the disciples of the 7 major sects that Chu Fumian killed were from the Tianjin sect and the Desolate Ancient sect. For example, Tianshu Hall and Medicine King Valley didn't intend to completely fall out with Chu Fumian. But now, when they heard the 3 words Sword Dao sect, it was completely different. They also knew what the 3 words Sword Dao sect represented. If Chu Fumian was really a descendant of the Sword Dao sect, then Chu Fumian might be able to defeat the Demon Emperor, which made them even more afraid. Take him down and carefully examine him. A great ancestor of the ancient Moon Canyon shouted angrily. As the voice fell, the great ancestors of the ancient Moon Canyon all attacked together. The spiritual power in the sky turned into streaks of green silk, weaving and enveloping Chu Fumian on the spot. The green silk was formed, and its speed was extremely fast. It covered the sky and earth and fell on Chu Fumian's head. At the same time, the sword chi of the 4 Tianjin sect's great ancestors also began to close in on Chu Fumian, gradually forcing Chu Fumian into the green silk. Is this the power of the great ancestors joining forces? Seeing that Chu Fumian was about to be trapped in the green silk in an instant, a trace of shock flashed in the eyes of the warriors in the stands. Every great ancestor of the 9 domains was enough to be called a top figure in the 9 domains. Now, all the great ancestors present joined forces to deal with Chu Fumian. Just the combination of the sword chi and the green silk. Even any great ancestor of the great ancestors couldn't escape from it. Even if he's a monstrous genius, he won't be able to pass today's test. Many people looked at Chu Fumian and sighed. Chu Fumian defeated the Demon Emperor and 4 great ancestors of the 6 demon sects, which was already beyond the imagination of countless people. But now there were 27 great ancestors. It was almost impossible for Chu Fumian to pass this test. Damn it! Chu Fumian stared at the ancient Moon Valley's ancestor Wu. The black strands of spiritual power formed by their combined efforts seemed ordinary, but Chu Fumian could sense how tough they were. Once trapped, Chu Fumian would be suppressed. There would be no suspense at all. Sword shattering heaven and earth. Chu Fumian held the sword with both hands. One of the swords slashed towards the green thread, while the other slashed towards the 4 supreme ancestors of the Tianjin sect. Crack! Under Chu Fumian's sword, the black hair began to shatter layer by layer and then collapse. On the other hand, The swords of the four progenitors were shattered on the spot, forcing them to take a few steps back. The two swords had neutralized all the danger. Everyone at the scene was trembling with fear as they watched the battle between Chu Fengmian and Ancestor Wu from the Seven Sections. What a powerful sword! I can't believe that this kid could neutralize the suppression from several old ancestors. Hearing the discussion, the faces of immortal GNK and the others were extremely ugly and gloomy. The seven supreme ancestors of the seven sects had disregarded their status and joined forces to deal with Chu Fengmian, but they still couldn't suppress Chu Fengmian. Not only venerable GNK, but the other Ancestor Wu of the Sky Sword Sect and Ancestor Wu of the Ancient Moon Valley also had the same ugly expression. Ancient Moon, Heavenly Might. Sage, King Invincible. Seven Styles of Sky Sword. Ancient Divine Fist. In an instant, four terrifying forces bombarded Chu Fengmian at the same time. The Ancestor Wu from the Sage King Sect and the Ancient Desolate Sect couldn't help but join forces. There were a total of 19 Ancestor Wu. At this moment, they attacked together. The power they gathered was suffocating. Before such power, there was simply no one capable of contending against it. Even Chu Fengmian was under enormous pressure. The four Ancestor Wu brought great pressure to Chu Fengmian, not to mention the joint forces of 19 Ancestor Wu. Chu Fengmian, do you really think that you can compete with the seven supreme sects with a few spiritual weapons and some luck? In the 9 regions, the 7 supreme sects are invincible. Anyone who dares to go against us will die. Immortal GNK looked at Chu Fengmian and sneered. Kill. The spiritual energy in the sky bombarded Chu Fengmian at the same time. The joint forces of 19 Ancestor Wu had never been seen in the 9 regions for thousands of years. Immortal GNK's eyes were full of confidence. No matter how heaven-defying Chu Fengmian was, he couldn't leave alive under the joint forces of so many Ancestor Wu. Today, if I, Chu Fengmian, leave here alive, I will destroy the 7 supreme sects within 3 years and trample them under my feet. Chu Fengmian looked at the group of Ancestor Wu from the 7 sects and said word by word, 3 years. If Chu Fengmian was given another 3 years, he was confident that he could trample the other supreme sects under his feet. Now that he was besieged, it was the greatest danger for Chu Fengmian and also the best training for him. As long as Chu Fengmian could escape, it would be impossible for the 7 supreme sects to deal with Chu Fengmian. 3 years? Unfortunately, you won't have 3 more years to live. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Immortal GNK laughed and said, Kill. While speaking, Immortal GNK also moved. A dazzling sword light slashed down from the tip of his sword. The sky was filled with sword light. Under the joint forces of the other Ancestor Wu, the endless spiritual energy that was condensed came crashing down. I am the Sword God. Chu Fengmian moved again. The sword intent of the Sword God realm was added to the tip of Chu Fengmian's sword. Rays of sword intent fell from the sky and fell into Chu Fengmian's body. It was as if Chu Fengmian was the embodiment of invincibility, the embodiment of the Sword God. I am the Sword God. Chu Fengmian, who had stepped into this realm, was the Sword God himself. It's useless. No matter how strong your sword intent is, you can't be our opponent. Immortal Qing Huang laughed ferociously. Rumble. At the moment when the countless martial techniques collided with Chu Fengmian's sword, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. It almost deafened the eardrums of the martial artists present. In the midst of the explosion, what was even more shocking was the collision of spiritual energy. At the edge of Chu Fengmian's location, the surrounding space was shattered countless times. The terrifying power was transmitted to the void, and even the void was exploding. Chapter 10:14. The 27 old ancestors did not hold back when facing Chu Fengmian. They bombarded Chu Fengmian with countless martial arts techniques. The power of one old Ancestor Wu was already extremely terrifying, not to mention the 27 old Ancestors Wu. They joined forces and launched countless killing moves towards Chu Fengmian. Rumble. Countless spiritual energies collided in the air, and Chu Fengmian's sword chi was shattered. Even the sword chi that Chu Fengmian unleashed in the divine sword realm was no match for the 27 old ancestors. Chu Fengmian's figure retreated continuously, buffering the power of the 27 old ancestors. Under the bombardment, Chu Fengmian's body shook a little. The power of the divine tree around his body was shaken and countless branches were shattered. Chu Fengmian's body had almost been smashed apart in this confrontation alone. With my current strength, I'm still far from being able to compete with them. However, as long as I can break the seal of the ancient fighting arena, I can use the Cloud Feather Palace to leave. Once I'm in the Cloud Feather Palace, even if the 27 old ancestors besiege me, I may still be able to fight them. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered, and he came up with a plan in an instant. Chu Fengmian was not a brainless brute. At this moment, it was absolutely the most foolish thing to do to fight against the 27 old ancestors. Although Chu Fengmian did not receive the reward of this year's 9 Regions Genius Battle and did not receive the blood essence of Ancestor Tianlong, Chu Fengmian's realm had begun to loosen up. Just a little bit more, and Chu Fengmian's strength could be further improved. As long as Chu Fengmian reached the Heavenly Fate realm, he would not be afraid, even if he was besieged by the old ancestors. With Chu Fengmian's potential, his strength would definitely undergo earth-shaking changes if he could pass through this stage. Chu Fengmian's figure shuttled through the ancient fighting arena. He did not plan to fight against the 27 old ancestors. Instead, he was constantly looking for a gap in the sealed space, looking for a chance to leave. The Divine Sword Realm Sword Principle is indeed terrifying. Unfortunately, your realm is still too low and too weak. If you reach the Heavenly Fate realm, it won't be so easy for us to deal with you. Immortal Jian Kate looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous intent. Just now, Chu Fengmian was able to withstand the joint attack of 27 great ancestors without dying. Most of the power was blocked by Chu Fengmian's sword that had reached the level of Sword God. For a sword cultivator, the most difficult aspect to improve was the Sword Dao, not the realm. Although Chu Fengmian's current strength was not as good as theirs, the Sword Dao of the Sword God realm was right there. As long as Chu Fengmian made a breakthrough, his strength would undergo an earth-shaking change. Reverend Jian Ke was very clear about this point. Sage Jian Ke's mind moved, and several spiritual swords flew out from his body. Thousands of spiritual swords flew out one after another. There were dozens of spiritual swords that had a heavenly sword. 10 were Fengmian. Heaven-destroying sword formation. The thousands of spiritual swords suddenly gathered in the air and formed a huge sword formation. It contained endless killing intent. The remaining 26 Ancestor Wu stepped into the sword formation one after another. Each of them held a spiritual sword and acted as the formation eye of the sword formation. The power of the sword formation constructed by 27 progenitors was comparable to the defensive formations of the top 7 sections. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with fear. With his eyes, he was naturally able to tell that the sword formation created by Sage Jian Ke had definitely reached an extremely terrifying level. Furthermore, it was a slaughtering sword formation. It only focused on slaughtering and contained extremely powerful offensive power. There were a total of 27 heavenly spiritual weapons. They were all controlled by the 27 old ancestors. The power of the sword formation was equivalent to the combined power of the 27 old ancestors. The power was unimaginable. Divine Sword Heaven Punishment. Immortal Jian Ke shouted coldly. The spiritual swords in the sky merged into one and formed a shocking sword light. It blasted towards Chu Fengmian. When the sword edge came out, heaven and earth would be destroyed. The power of the 27 old ancestors was gathered in the sword formation. They wanted to kill Chu Fengmian directly. Under the current circumstances, instead of suppressing Chu Fengmian, it would be better to directly kill Chu Fengmian to prevent future trouble. Damn it! Chu Fengmian's face was ferocious. If the 27 old ancestors wanted to suppress Chu Fengmian could still find a chance to escape. However, Chu Fengmian had to resist the killing sword formation. Fight! Do you really think you can kill me? Ridiculous. If I don't die today, all of you will die. All of a sudden, a strange spiritual power condensed in front of Chu Fengmian. It was this wave of spiritual energy that suddenly met the sword of slaughter. Boom! When the spiritual power approached the killing sword formation, Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. An extremely ancient aura was emitted from his body. The ancient aura soared to the sky. Ancient human emperor, enlighten all living beings. In an instant, a dazzling light burst out from the spiritual power. Behind the light, an ancient aura burst out and swept across the sky. Behind the ancient aura was an illusory figure that was slowly condensing. The illusory figure looked like a benevolent old man. However, he held the emperor jar in his hand and showed an extremely majestic expression. Even the old ancestors could not help but kneel down and worship him when they saw his majesty. Human Emperor, the ancient human emperor's shadow. Chu Fengmian's emperor jar had collected 5 fragments and recovered half of its power. It was enough to summon the ancient human emperor's shadow. The human emperor's shadow held the emperor jar. Spiritual power soared to the sky and collided with the killing sword formation. The terrifying killing intent of the killing sword formation was dissolved by a force when it got close to the emperor jar. Crack! Crack! Even the entire sky punishment sword formation began to crack. It was close to breaking. What's going on? What kind of force is this? Spiritual Master Jian Ke stared at the human emperor's shadow in the sky and shouted in disbelief. Chapter 10:15. Not only immortal Jian Ke and immortal Qing Huang felt the same way, but the other patriarchs also felt the same way. When they saw the human emperor's shadow, they felt fear in their hearts. They were all patriarchs of a supreme realm who had gone through countless life and death battles to reach the 9th step of the life and death steps, the immortal realm. However, at that moment, all of them felt fear in their hearts. Impossible! What is that? A spiritual weapon? How can a spiritual weapon's power reach such a level? Reverend Jian Ke panicked. He swept his gaze over and saw that the human emperor phantasm was formed from the power emitted from the broken jar in the sky. A broken spiritual weapon? With the power they had displayed earlier, even a heaven-ranked spiritual artifact would have been shattered by them. How could they possibly be able to force them to retreat? A spiritual weapon that could force all 27 patriarchs of a supreme realm to retreat. An extreme path celestial weapon? Is it the legendary extreme path celestial weapon? How can you have it? It has never appeared since the primordial era was destroyed. An extreme path celestial weapon is said to have the ability to kill immortals. How can you have it when none of the 7 major sects have it? Immortal Jian Ke cried out in panic. Now he understood what the broken jar was. An extreme path celestial weapon. Only an extreme path celestial weapon could force the 27 patriarchs of the supreme realm to retreat. Why does he have an extreme path celestial weapon? Didn't the extreme path celestial weapon disappear in the 9 regions? An extreme path celestial weapon is said to have the ability to kill immortals. And that shadow, who is it? Why do I feel fear and dare not to attack? The patriarchs of a supreme realm looked at the emperor jar with fear. An extreme path celestial weapon had not appeared in the 9 regions for tens of thousands of years. The extreme path celestial weapon that they knew was described in the ancient books. However, the records of the extreme path celestial weapon were the same in all the ancient books. It was extremely terrifying, and no one could resist the power of an extreme path celestial weapon. What should we do? This kid has an extreme path celestial weapon. This is the legendary immortal slaying weapon. The few old ancestors exchanged glances with each other, their eyes showing signs of retreating. The reputation of an extreme Tao celestial weapon was too well known. As ancestral ancestors, they were well aware of the terrifying power of an extreme Tao celestial weapon. Just now, they were unable to do anything to Chu Fengmian even when they joined forces. If they continued to fight, they were afraid that they would also end up dying. Wait, don't panic. Enlightened Jian carefully observed the emperor jar. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth revealed a cold smile. Chu Fengmian, do you think you can scare us with a broken extreme Dao immortal weapon? Your extreme Dao immortal weapon is actually incomplete, isn't it? If it was a real extreme grade immortal weapon, its power would have been enough to kill us. Unfortunately, you can't do that. You can only force us to retreat. Moreover, you can't use the power of a real extreme grade immortal weapon. So, you're merely putting on a strong front. Everyone, there's no need to worry. His extreme Dao immortal artifact is incomplete, and it's insufficient to pose a threat to us. The corners of Sage Jian K's mouth curled up in disdain. Incomplete? That's right. The aura of this extreme Dao immortal weapon seems to be slightly different from what's recorded. An incomplete extreme Dao immortal weapon. Upon hearing enlightened Jian K's words, the eyes of the ancestors present revealed a strange look. Vaguely, there was greed in their eyes. If Chu Fengmian really had a complete extreme Dao immortal weapon, of course, they would not be willing to go against Chu Fengmian. However, since it was an incomplete extreme Dao immortal weapon, it might not be enough to pose a threat to them. After all, they were ancestors of the Neverwither realm who were at the 9th step of the life and death steps. It seems like this lad still has many secrets. Even the extreme Dao immortal weapon is in his possession. Kill. He's just putting on a strong front. A few ancestors of the Supreme Realm shouted loudly. Suddenly, the Sky Punishment Sword formation erupted with even more powerful spiritual energy. It soared into the sky and completely repaired the sword formation that had just been broken. Lad, do you think that you can make us retreat with just an incomplete extreme Dao immortal weapon? We've already seen through your tricks. Ancestor Qing Huang looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed ferociously. No one can save you today. Everything that happens to you will belong to us. In the Sky Punishment Sword formation, an extremely powerful spiritual energy condensed on the spot. It turned into a sword of slaughter and slashed towards Chu Fengmian. This sword of slaughter was even more powerful than the previous one. Under the dazzling sword light, it contained an extremely strong killing power. Under the sword of slaughter, the heavens and earth would perish. Putting on a strong front? Very well. Since I've even used the human emperor jar, it'll be a pity if I don't kill a few ancestors of the Supreme Realm. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. He no longer had any scruples now. Since his identity and trump cards had all been exposed, there was no need for him to hold back. Chu Fengmian did not have the ability to kill all 27 ancestors of the Supreme Realm. However, he could still kill a few ancestors of the Supreme Realm before he left. Strength of the human emperor, strengthen my body. Chu Fengmian's mind suddenly moved. The shadow of the human emperor suddenly condensed on Chu Fengmian's body and began to merge with Chu Fengmian's figure. Faintly, Chu Fengmian now turned into the appearance of the ancient human emperor. The moment Chu Fengmian and the shadow of the human emperor merged into one, the power of the human emperor jar in Chu Fengmian's hand became closer. Chu Fengmian's bloodline instantly burned. The ice and fire divine body, everything that he had encountered, was burning crazily. A steady stream of spiritual energy began to pour into the human emperor jar. It was almost draining Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy. The power of the human emperor jar finally condensed to the limit. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy was countless times stronger than that of the Supreme Realm ancestors. Even with the support of the divine vein, it was almost drained by the human emperor jar. Now, this broken human emperor jar, even if it was given to any Supreme Realm ancestor, they would not be able to unleash its power. Even Chu Fengmian could barely activate it. Chapter 10:16. What kind of power is this? Could it be that this man can unleash the power of an extreme path immortal weapon? In the all-heaven sword formation, the 27 patriarchs looked at Chu Fengmian with uneasiness in their eyes. In their imagination, it would be fine even if the Emperor Jar in Chu Fengmian's hand was a true extreme path immortal weapon. Even Patriarch Wu might not be able to activate an extreme path immortal weapon, let alone Chu Fengmian, who was only in the heart-refining realm. But now, seeing the emperor jar in Chu Fengmian's hand, no one dared to bet with Chu Fengmian. Even though the emperor jar in Chu Fengmian's hand looked broken, it was still an extreme path immortal weapon. Stop him. No one knew who shouted first. The patriarchs present looked solemn as they began to gather spiritual power and bombarded Chu Fengmian. Obviously, they did not intend to give Chu Fengmian a chance to accumulate spiritual power. The spiritual power in the sky bombarded Chu Fengmian. Under such a powerful bombardment, even a patriarch would be blasted to pieces on the spot. However, when these waves of energy struck the emperor's jar, they couldn't shake it in the slightest. An extreme path immortal weapon, even if it was a broken one, was still not something that Patriarch Wu could shake. Now that Chu Fengmian had merged with the Emperor's shadow, all the spiritual power that bombarded Chu Fengmian was transferred to the Emperor jar. Under the bombardment of so many forces, Chu Fengmian was helpless. At the same time, these forces were cleverly transferred to the Emperor jar by Chu Fengmian. In the Emperor jar, the forces were accumulated. You want to stop me now? It's over. Chu Fengmian's face was somewhat ferocious. The forces of the bombardment had been accumulated by Chu Fengmian into the Emperor jar, speeding up the accumulation of the Emperor jar's power. Now it's time for you to have a taste of being bombarded. Chu Fengmian laughed loudly, and the Emperor jar in his hand suddenly flew out. In the air, waves of spiritual power fluctuations were transmitted. Endless spiritual power was constantly emitted from the Emperor jar, condensing into an ancient majesty. Every ancestor who sensed the ancient aura had a drastic change in their expressions. Their hearts were filled with terror. The spiritual power that filled the sky was crushed by the ancient aura around the Emperor jar the moment it got close to it. Not good, retreat. Sage Jian Kei's expression changed drastically as he shouted. His heaven-destroying sword formation also switched from offense to defense, intending to resist the bombardment of the Emperor jar. You want to retreat now? It's over. The ancient human emperor will teach us for life. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. With a thought, he controlled the Emperor jar and bombarded it with terrifying spiritual energy. The ripple of energy had surpassed Progenitor Wu's. It had reached a completely different level. Even if there were 100 Ancestor Wu, they would not be able to match his strength, let alone 27 Ancestor Wu. When the power of the human Emperor jar burst out, Chu Fengmian felt a sense of exhaustion. With his current strength, he could only use the power of the Emperor jar when he pushed his power to the extreme. At this moment, Chu Fengmian felt a little weak. Even divine power could not replenish Chu Fengmian's spiritual power in such a short period of time. Even if Chu Fengmian killed a few Ancestor Wu with this bombardment, it would not be particularly meaningful to him. What he needed was to break the seal of the surrounding space. Break! Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. The power of the Emperor jar blasted out, turning into a spiritual impact that blasted out from the ancient fighting ring. Rumble! The sound of the thunderous explosion resounded through the entire ring. The ancient fighting ring shook violently. In an instant, the spiritual power of the Emperor jar poured down. Crack! The sky-vanquishing sword array that was formed in front of enlightened Jian Kei suddenly shattered at this moment. As cracks appeared, in the next moment, it shattered on the spot. Puff! Sage Jian Kei, who was at the heart of the sword formation, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The sword formation shattered on the spot. The Ancestor Wu present were all sent flying. Almost everyone's face was pale as they were severely injured. Although they were severely injured, they did not die. The heaven-destroying sword formation had blocked 90% of the power of the Emperor jar. Although the remaining power was enough to seriously injure them, it was not enough to kill them. However, they were not in a good condition either. Each of them had spat out a few mouthfuls of blood essence. The higher the realm of an expert, the more difficult it was for them to recover from their injuries. Ordinary injuries were naturally not a big deal. However, they had been beaten to the point of spitting out their essence blood. This was a serious injury to their tendons and bones. It had damaged their foundation. They would not be able to recover without a few decades or 100 years. It could be said that these people would not be able to fight again within 100 years. At the cost of 27 ancestor Wu's inability to fight again within 100 years, they had exchanged Chu Fengmian's life. In order to deal with Chu Fengmian, they had paid such a heavy price. This was absolutely unexpected. What a powerful kid. I didn't expect him to be able to activate the power of an extreme path immortal weapon. It's just a broken extreme path immortal weapon, but it can erupt with such terrifying power. However, this kid is already exhausted. He no longer has the power to activate the extreme path immortal weapon. Countless gazes were fixed on Chu Fengmian. These ancestor Wu's eyes were full of killing intent as they looked at Chu Fengmian. They had already paid such a heavy price today. No matter what, they must keep Chu Fengmian here. Chu Fengmian, stay here. Sage Jian Ke roared ferociously. He took the initiative to attack. His body moved and approached Chu Fengmian. With a move of his palm, he blasted towards Chu Fengmian. Although he was injured and only had 50% of his peak strength, Chu Fengmian was also like a lamp that had run out of oil. Half of his strength was enough to deal with Chu Fengmian, who was exhausted. Sky Sword Absolute Seal. 5 spiritual swords flew out from Reverend Jian Ke's palm and suppressed Chu Fengmian one after another. These 5 spiritual swords were the suppression technique of the Tian Jian sect. Chu Fengmian had too many secrets. The benefits of killing Chu Fengmian were far more than suppressing Chu Fengmian. Chapter 1017. Are you courting death? Chu Fengmian sneered when he saw spiritual master Jian Ke rushing toward him alone. On the other side of the phone, the Emperor's jar appeared in his palm again, shining with a bright light. The moment he saw the Emperor jar, immortal Jian Ke had the thought of retreating. His eyes were filled with fear. The power that the Emperor jar had just unleashed had left a deep impression on him, so much so that he wanted to retreat. But soon, spiritual master Jian Ke's lips curled into a disdainful smile. Chu Fengmian, do you think you can scare me away with this extreme great immortal weapon? Do you think you can still activate it? Don't waste your energy struggling. Spiritual master Jian Ke said coldly. He could clearly see Chu Fengmian's lack of spiritual power at first glance. At this time, spiritual master Jian Ke would never believe that Chu Fengmian still had the ability to activate the Emperor jar. Is that so? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered with coldness. Then I'll show you. The Emperor jar in Chu Fengmian's palm moved again, emitting a dazzling light. Under the dazzling light, the energy of the Emperor jar rose steadily and began to condense. This is impossible. Spiritual master Jian Ke stared at the Emperor jar in Chu Fengmian's palm and shouted in disbelief when he saw the Emperor jar gathering spiritual energy. Chu Fengmian should have no spiritual energy left. It was impossible for him to activate the Emperor jar now. Reverend Jian Ke could tell that even for him, being able to activate the mortal Emperor jar once was his limit. It was impossible for him to activate it twice in such a short period of time. Under spiritual master Jian Ke's incredulous gaze, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and suddenly tore a crack in front of him. Behind the fissure were countless spirit stones. They were all royal-grade spirit stones. Tens of millions, perhaps even billions of royal-grade spirit stones flew out from the fissure. A steady stream of spiritual stones were thrown into the Emperor jar, and it began to burn. All the burning spiritual energy was integrated into the Emperor jar. Burning spiritual stones? Is this kid planning to burn spirit stones to forcibly activate the power of the extreme great immortal weapon? All eyes were on Chu Fengmian. When they saw the countless royal-grade spiritual stones in front of Chu Fengmian, many of them were stunned. These were all royal-grade spirit stones. Even the fact that they could take out several million royal-grade spirit stones at once was a sign of the heavens. In just a short period of time, hundreds of millions of royal-grade spiritual stones were poured into the human emperor's jar. Even the 7 major sects would not be able to take out so many royal-grade spiritual stones at once. Is this kid crazy? He's burning such a large amount of spirit stones just like that? Many martial artists in the spectator stands were extremely jealous. Their hearts were bleeding as they watched the spirit stones burn. A royal grade spirit stone was extremely attractive to any patriarch. It could be said that it was extremely precious. Now, Chu Fumian had tossed these hundreds of millions of royal grade spirit stones into the emperor jar without any hesitation. He forcibly burned spirit stones to activate the emperor jar. This was something that even the wealthiest people would not be able to do. Retreat. Enlightened Master GNK was a little frightened when he saw more and more royal grade spirit stones being poured into the emperor jar. Although the power of the emperor jar that was forcibly activated by burning spirit stones was less than 1% of its original power, it was still fatal to him. Attack quickly. We can't let this kid accumulate more power. The other patriarchs' faces turned gloomy when they saw the spiritual energy gathering in the emperor jar increasing. They were also afraid of the power of the emperor jar. If they were affected, none of them would be able to withstand it. 7 or 8 figures were approaching Chu Fumian at the same time. They joined forces with enlightened Master GNK to attack Chu Fumian. More and more people are coming to die. No matter how many of them come, they will all die. Chu Fumian's eyes were filled with sarcasm. When the 7 or 8 figures were close to Chu Fumian suddenly activated his mind, and the power of the emperor jar was released. Boom! The ancient power once again erupted from the emperor jar, turning into a blast of air that spread in all directions. This time, the power of the emperor jar was less than 1% of its original power. However, this time, there was no all-heavens formation to help them withstand the attack. Moreover, each of the ancestral sovereigns who were present was severely injured. Even 1% of the power of the emperor jar was not fatal to them. No! In an instant, the 7 or 8 figures and enlightened Master GNK were swept away by the power of the emperor jar. Their bodies were constantly being torn apart by the power of the Renwan jar. Puff! Puff! Clouds of blood mist exploded in the airwaves of the emperor jar. Even immortal GNK was torn apart on the spot by the airwaves, leaving behind only a cloud of blood mist. In front of Chu Fumian, the 9 patriarchs who were bombarded by the power of the emperor jar were all killed by the power of the emperor jar, leaving only a puff of blood mist behind. Silence. The ancient gladiator arena suddenly became silent. Countless martial artists were speechless when they saw the puff of blood mist in front of Chu Fumian. A total of 9 patriarchs fell, just like that. In front of the emperor jar, they died on the spot. Even enlightened Master GNK, the best among the patriarchs, died. For hundreds of years, the 9 domains had never had 9 patriarchs fall, including the 2 patriarchs from the 6 Paths Demon sect who died in Chu Fumian's hands. Now, a total of 11 patriarchs were killed by Chu Fumian. The rest of you, one day, I will kill you all one by one. Chu Fumian looked at the remaining patriarchs. After activating the emperor jar twice, Chu Fumian's power had reached its limit. He could not fight anymore. Otherwise, Chu Fumian would kill them all. Originally, Chu Fumian's plan was to kill enlightened Master GNK and then leave. Killing 8 more great ancestors was already enough for him to make a profit. Let's go. Chu Fumian moved his body and went out through the cracks in the surrounding space, disappearing without a trace. Chapter 10:18. It's safe now. Chu Fumian looked at the cloud feather palace in front of him and felt relieved. Chu Fumian had left the ancient gladiator arena in a hurry and returned to the cloud feather palace before the remaining ancestor Wu could react. When Chu Fumian killed Taoist GNK and the other 8 ancestor Wu, Chu Fumian had almost no spiritual power left in his body. Using the power of the emperor jar twice in a row was enough to drain Chu Fumian's spiritual power completely. Chu Fumian was in an extremely dangerous situation at that time. If the remaining ancestor Wu attacked Chu Fumian again, Chu Fumian would be dead for sure. Fortunately, the scene of Chu Fumian using the power of the emperor jar twice in a row and killing the 9 ancestor Wu had shocked everyone present. Thus, Chu Fumian found an opportunity to leave the ancient gladiator arena and avoid a lot of trouble. Chu Fengmian was already satisfied to be able to leave the ancient gladiator arena unscathed. However, it was a pity that Chu Fengmian did not obtain the essence blood of progenitor Tianlong. Chu Fengmian had originally thought that the essence blood of progenitor Tianlong should be in the hands of Jian Ke Enlightened. Therefore, Chu Fengmian had wanted to take the risk and kill Jian Ke Enlightened. However, Chu Fengmian did not see the essence blood of progenitor Tianlong in Jian Ke Enlightened's empty ring. The myriad treasure sky jade talisman was also not there. It seemed like the reward of the 9-region genius battle was not with Jian Ke Enlightened. However, the essence blood of the 9 ancestor Wu was still a great harvest for Chu Fengmian. It should be known that every ancestor Wu stood at the peak of the 9 regions. Devouring the essence blood of one ancestor Wu would increase Chu Fengmian's strength significantly. Devouring all the essence blood of the 9 ancestor Wu would increase Chu Fengmian's strength significantly. Luo Shi, 6-Path Demon Sect, Demon Emperor. Although Chu Fengmian had returned to Cloud Feather Palace, he didn't look relaxed in the slightest. The Demon Emperor's words were still fresh in Chu Fengmian's mind. Although Luo Shi wasn't in much danger at the moment, the Demon Emperor already knew about Luo Shi and Chu Fengmian. If that happened, Luo Shi would be in grave danger in the 6 Paths Demon Gate. Chu Fengmian couldn't delay any longer. He had to go to the 6 Paths Demonic Gates. Let's refine the blood essence of these 9 supreme ancestors first. Even with the Holy Pulse, Chu Fengmian's depleted spiritual energy couldn't be recovered in a short period of time. He closed his eyes tightly and slowly began to refine the blood essence of the 9 supreme ancestors. Even the godly tree couldn't refine the blood essence of the 9 supreme ancestors in one go. Therefore, Chu Fengmian took half of it for himself to refine and improve his cultivation base. Chu Fengmian's current level was close to reaching the peak of the heart refinement realm. As long as he took one more step, he would be able to step into the heavenly mandate realm and become a ruler. Even if the blood essence can't help me improve my cultivation base, it should be enough to bring my cultivation base to the peak of the heart refinement realm. When the time comes, I can choose to break through. Chu Fengmian sat on the ground. The spiritual energy in his body slowly condensed and began to devour the blood essence of the supreme ancestors. The blood essence of the supreme ancestors in the immortal realm was almost the purest spiritual energy, without a trace of impurities. Chu Fengmian could refine it easily. However, what Chu Fengmian was doing now wasn't just refining the blood essence. He was also recalling the battle that had just taken place in his mind. The life and death battles that Chu Fengmian experienced in the ancient gladiator arena were great opportunities for him. In particular, Chu Fengmian's sword principle had reached the 9th level of the Sword God realm, the I Am Sword God realm. This was the greatest improvement for Chu Fengmian. The improvement of his sword principle was something that benefited Chu Fengmian immensely. As Chu Fengmian's cultivation base increased, his sword principle would also become more powerful. There was extremely rich spiritual energy everywhere in the ruins of End. It was the same in the heavenly feather divine territory. The spiritual energy here was much richer than in the countless sacred grounds of the 9 domains. However, it had become thin now. From where Chu Fengmian was, above his head, a huge vortex was continuously devouring the surrounding spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in the entire heavenly feather divine territory was being devoured by this huge vortex. What kind of cultivation technique is the young master cultivating? Why does he need to devour so much spiritual energy? Not far away, in front of the palace, Elder Yin couldn't help but exclaim as he watched Chu Fengmian continuously devour the spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in the heavenly feather divine territory was not easy to be sucked dry in one breath, even if it was a supreme ancestor. However, it was being devoured in front of Chu Fengmian. The spiritual energy of the heavenly feather divine territory was not something that the more one devoured, the better it was. If it were other warriors, they would have exploded and died long ago. Chu Fengmian's appetite was much bigger than those demonic beasts. However, the Heavenly Feather Palace was in the ruins of End, so Elder Yin wasn't worried. When the spiritual energy in the Heavenly Feather Divine territory was almost completely devoured, Elder Yin suddenly waved his hand, and a crack tore open in the Heavenly Feather Divine territory. Behind this crack was the ruins of End. The endless spiritual energy in the ruins of End began to pour in, but it was still being devoured by the vortex in front of Chu Fengmian. On the other side, behind Chu Fengmian, the shadow of the ancient war dragon had begun to appear. Drops of ancient war dragon blood essence were condensed continuously. With each drop of ancient war dragon blood essence condensed, Chu Fengmian's aura became stronger. An entire day passed. The vortex in front of Chu Fengmian began to devour the spiritual energy of the Heavenly Feather Divine territory at a slower speed, and then gradually disappeared. Chu Fengmian's tightly shut eyes also slowly opened. 99,000 drops. Chu Fengmian felt that the amount of ancient war dragon blood essence in his body had reached the level of 99,000 drops. Thinking back to when he was in the ancient gladiator arena, his strength had improved again. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's realm had also reached the peak of the heart-refining realm. 100,000. Condensing 100,000 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence is when I step into the destiny realm. Chapter 1019. Although he was only short of 1,000 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence, Chu Fengmian could feel that his strength had reached a bottleneck. He needed an opportunity to advance further. However, this time, with the help of the blood essence of several supreme ancestors, Chu Fengmian had finally reached the peak of the heart-refining realm. This was enough for Chu Fengmian. Congratulations, young master. Your strength has improved further. Elder Yin said with a smile as he watched Chu Fengmian slowly wake up. His choice of letting Chu Fengmian inherit Yu Heavenly Palace was definitely the best choice. Chu Fengmian's strength would change dramatically every time he returned to Yu Heavenly Palace. This kind of growth speed made Elder Yin gasp in amazement. Yu Heavenly Palace was once a sect that dominated the 9 regions. At its peak, Yu Heavenly Palace could be said to be more terrifying than the current 7 major sects combined. Even so, among the countless geniuses that were born in Yu Heavenly Palace, there were very few who could be compared with Chu Fengmian. How is Yueli? Chu Fengmian asked. Han Yueli had been accepting the inheritance of Yu Heavenly Palace since she came to the palace. When Chu Fengmian returned, Han Yueli had already accepted more than half of the inheritance. It was almost time for her to come out of seclusion. The inheritance of Yu Heavenly Palace was no small matter. If it was not for the fact that Chu Fengmian cultivated the dragon fighting skill, which could not be replaced by other cultivation skills, he would also want to accept the inheritance of Yu Heavenly Palace. Once Han Yueli finished accepting the inheritance of Yu Heavenly Palace, her strength would change dramatically. Miss Han's inheritance is coming soon. She should come out of seclusion in 3 to 5 days. Elder Yin said honestly. Everything in Yu Heavenly Palace was under his control. Naturally, he knew what Han Yueli knew. 3 to 5 days. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. 3 to 5 days was extremely short for a martial artist. However, Chu Fengmian could not afford to wait any longer. It seems that I can't wait for Yueli to come out of seclusion. Chu Fengmian sighed softly. He also wanted to wait for 3 to 5 days, but now there was no chance for Chu Fengmian to wait. In this short period of time, Chu Fengmian felt a kind of anxiety from the bottom of his heart. This anxiety came from Luo Shi. Chu Fengmian had left a drop of essence blood on Luo Shi's body. He could feel that Luo Shi's current situation was getting worse and worse. It seemed like the Demon Emperor was already planning to take action against Luo Shi. If the Demon Emperor were to capture Luo Shi, Chu Fengmian would become even more passive. Chu Fengmian couldn't delay his trip to the 6 Paths Demon Gates any longer. I want to leave Cloud Feather Palace and protect Yueli. Chu Fengmian looked at Elder Yin and said calmly. Before Elder Yin could reply, Chu Fengmian's figure disappeared from the Cloud Feather Heavenly Palace. After passing through Cloud Feather Palace's teleportation array, Chu Fengmian arrived at the 9 realms. Chu Fengmian moved his body and traveled through the void to the depths of the void. There was a map in his mind. It was a map that led to the 6 Paths Demon Gates. The 6 Paths Demon Gates weren't located in the 9 realms. Instead, they were hidden in a small world in the depths of the void. Before Luo she left this map behind and gave it to Chu Fengmian. Now, this map could be put to good use. There was no danger in the void turbulence. However, for Chu Fengmian's current strength, the void turbulence was nothing to him. He shuttled through the void turbulence and flew in the direction of the 6 Paths Demon Gates. Luo Shi, I will bring you back. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. He should save his woman. Even if it was a tiger's den, Chu Fengmian would barge in. The 6 Paths Demon Gates. The Demon Emperor. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with killing intent. No one had ever dared to threaten Chu Fengmian, especially with Chu Fengmian's woman. This time, Chu Fengmian was going to the 6 Paths Demon Gates not only to take Luo Shi away, but also to kill the Demon Emperor. No one had ever dared to threaten Chu Fengmian, not even the Demon Emperor. Kid, do you really plan to go alone? Xing Xian suddenly asked in his mind. The 6 Paths Demon Gates used to be a famous force in the 9 realms. They used to stand at the peak of the 9 realms. Even though they have declined, they are still as powerful as a starving camel. You're courting death by going alone. The strength of the 6 Paths Demon Gates was just the tip of the iceberg. However, the Demon Emperor alone was enough to bring 4 supreme ancestors with him. This was enough to prove the strength of the 6 Paths Demon Gates. Chu Fengmian knew how dangerous it was to go alone to the 6 Paths Demon Gates. However, there wasn't a trace of fear on Chu Fengmian's face. So what? Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid of the 6 Paths Demon Gates. This time, Chu Fengmian had to go. Even if he went alone, he would make the 6 Paths Demon Gates suffer. Retreat? Fear? Chu Fengmian had lived 2 lives. He had already died once. What was there to be afraid of? In his previous life, Chu Fengmian was powerless. He could only watch as his master and senior brothers and sisters died. He couldn't do anything about it. In this life, Chu Fengmian kept improving his cultivation base and strength. He wanted to protect everything that he wanted to protect. If he couldn't even protect his woman, what was the point of cultivating? Sigh. Xing Xian sighed when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. This time, he couldn't dissuade Chu Fengmian. The little guy should be able to help you. Suddenly, Xing Xian changed the topic and said, the little guy's strength has recovered. Little 9? Chu Fengmian's eyes lit up when he heard Xing Xian's words. The little guy was naturally referring to Little 9. He summoned Little 9 with his mind, and Little 9 appeared in Chu Fengmian's arms. Little 9 had already woken up, and it seemed that his aura had completely recovered. In just one day, Little 9's strength had fully recovered. This speed was comparable to Chu Fengmian's divine pulse. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but marvel at the strength of an innate divine beast. The recovery ability of Little 9's strength was beyond the reach of other cultivators. With Little 9's help, this battle isn't hopeless. Chapter 10:20. Little 9's strength had been demonstrated in the ancient gladiator arena. In a short period of time, even the combined strength of 4 ancestors was no match for Little 9. In a short period of explosive power, Little 9's strength was stronger than that of Ancestor Wu, who was in the immortal realm. Although the duration was very short, this sudden burst of power was already a great help to Chu Fengmian. As long as the timing was right, it was enough to cause great harm to several ancestors. Chu Fengmian was thinking about this as his figure approached the depths of the void. The moment he reached the depths of the void, Chu Fengmian suddenly slashed out with the spiritual sword in his hand. The space was torn apart on the spot, and behind the space was an ancient demon realm. It was revealed. This ancient demon realm was a mountain peak. On the peak of the mountain, there was the largest palace, which was emitting demon will. 6 demon peaks. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. The mountain peak in front of him was where the 6 demon gates were located. Chu Fengmian felt that Luo Shi was now in the 6 demon peaks. Chu Fengmian. In the 6 demon peaks, Luo Shi's eyes suddenly flickered. Now she also felt Chu Fengmian's arrival. After a short moment of joy, Luo Shi's heart was no longer nervous. The Demon Emperor did not kill her directly in the House of Storms in order to draw Chu Fengmian out. Today, Chu Fengmian really came. Don't worry. Chu Fengmian also felt Luo Shi's anxiety and said to himself calmly, "I'll take you home." After muttering to himself, Chu Fengmian looked at the 6 demon peaks in front of him. He slowly raised the sword in his hand and slashed out. "Demon Emperor, come out and face your death." As his voice fell, the sword slashed out in the air. The moment the sword slashed out, countless restrictions condensed in the 6 demon peaks, forming the protective mountain array. However, under the bombardment of the sword, countless cracks began to appear on the protective mountain array. Crack! A crisp sound rang out from the 6 demon peaks. Countless disciples of the 6 demon gates couldn't help but raise their heads and look at the celestial pole. They couldn't believe what they saw. Was the protective array of the 6 demon peaks broken, just like that? There was actually someone who dared to come to the 6 demon gates and break the restrictions of the 6 demon peaks? Especially when it came to Chu Fengmian. The Demon Emperor came out to die. Saying such words in the territory of the 6 Paths Demon Gate was no longer arrogant, but courting death. "Chu Fengmian, you still dare to come to the 6 Paths Demon Gate?" A few figures flew out from the 6 demon peaks. The 2 old men were Demon Supremacy Geely and Demon Supremacy 9 Abyss, whom Chu Fengmian had met once at the ancient gladiator arena. The 2 of them had nearly died at Chu Fengmian's hands back in the ancient fighting arena. At that time, Chu Fengmian's main goal was to kill the Devil Emperor's incarnation. That was why he let the 2 of them live. Why not? What about the Demon Emperor? Get him out here. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold as he glanced at this group of figures. There were a total of 15 figures, and all of them were ancestral ancestors of the immortal realm. The foundation of the 6 Paths Demon Gates was indeed more terrifying than Chu Fengmian had imagined. If Thousand Change Prince and Withered Bones Demon Supremacy were added to the number of ancestral ancestors of the 6 Paths Demon Gates, there were a total of 17 ancestral ancestors of the immortal realm in the 6 Paths Demon Gates. This number was not inferior to the 7 Paths Demon Gates. The 15 ancestral ancestors of the 6 Paths Demon Gates looked at Chu Fengmian with cold eyes filled with killing intent. The 6 Paths Demon Gates had never been trampled on by others. Chu Fengmian had barged in and shattered the protective array of the 6 demon peaks with a single strike. It was a slap to the face of the 6 Paths Demon Gates. "Kid, you want to see the Holy Emperor?" One of the ancestral ancestors of the 6 Paths Demon Gates said with a hoarse voice as he sized Chu Fengmian up, "I was wondering who you were. You're just a heart-refining realm kid. How dare you act so presumptuously in our 6 Paths Demon Gates? Kids nowadays are getting more and more arrogant. You want to see the Holy Emperor? When we capture you, you'll have the chance to see the Holy Emperor." As he spoke, the hoarse ancestral ancestors of the 6 Paths Demon Gates swept towards Chu Fengmian with a flick of his sleeve. "Be careful, Guamo. This kid's strength is extremely strange." Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss could not help but warn Guamo when he saw Guamo making his move. He had fought with Chu Fengmian before. Naturally, he knew that Chu Fengmian's strength was not as simple as judging by his eyes. However, his warning came too late. How dare an old man act presumptuously in front of me? Murderous intent appeared in Chu Fengmian's eyes. The Sword God Realm sword intent suddenly gathered at the tip of his sword, and the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword was unsheathed. A dazzling sword light pierced towards Guamo sword break. Swoosh! The dazzling sword light shot up into the sky. The demon gates that filled the sky were shattered by the sword light. Guamo was horrified and he retreated continuously. However, Chu Fengmian's sword light was astonishingly fast. In an instant, the sword light split into thousands of sword lights and pierced towards Guamo die. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. Guamo's body was pierced by thousands of sword lights at the same time. He turned into a cloud of blood mist and died on the spot. An ancestor of the Supreme Realm was killed by Chu Fengmian's sword. Even the other ancestor of the 6 Path Demon Sects could not react in time. They did not even have time to support. Guamo was killed on the spot. This kind of strength and speed was definitely not something a heart-refining realm martial artist could achieve. Who is this kid? What a strange kid. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Chu Fengmian fearlessly. Ancestor Wu, who was in the immortal realm, had a shocking vitality. As long as it was not instantly fatal, he could recover. It was not easy for an ancestor of the Supreme Realm to kill another ancestor of the Supreme Realm. Gui Mo's strength was comparable to the ancestor of the immortal realm. Although he was not strong, he was still a wanderer. They were stunned and could not believe that he was killed by Chu Fengmian. This person is Chu Fengmian, the one who forced the Demon Emperor into a desperate situation in the Nine Regions Genius Battle. Demon Sovereign Nine Abyss looked at Chu Fengmian and said slowly, "What? It's him?" Ancestor of the Supreme Realm did not have much reaction when he heard Chu Fengmian's name. Chapter 10:21. When the Demon Emperor was participating in the Nine Regions Genius Battle, the Six Paths Demon Sect's old ancestors thought that the Demon Emperor would definitely win the battle. Chu Fengmian's sudden appearance had evaded the Demon Emperor's championship and caused the Demon Emperor to suffer heavy losses. Losing 8 incarnations in a row was a huge blow to the Devil Emperor. In their opinion, the Demon Emperor was the most talented genius in the Nine Regions. Even Jian Zhanxian and the others could not be compared to the Demon Emperor. They had never thought that someone could surpass the Demon Emperor. Before this, there were still some people who scoffed at the rumors. Now that they had seen Chu Fengmian kill Puppet Demon with a single strike, they no longer had such thoughts. "Come out, Demon Emperor. Otherwise, everyone from the Six Paths Demon Sect will die today." Chu Fengmian held the Ancestral Dragon Supreme sword and shouted coldly. He knew that the Demon Emperor was still hiding in the Six Paths Demon Sect. However, the Demon Emperor did not dare to act recklessly. Chu Fengmian had killed 8 of his incarnations. If he had not cultivated the Nirvana Divine Body to the Great Completion Realm, the Demon Emperor would be his original body now. Once Chu Fengmian killed his original body, the Demon Emperor would die for real. There was no way for him to survive. That was why the Demon Emperor had chosen to hide. "Kid, don't be too arrogant. This is the Six Paths Demon Sect. How dare you act presumptuously here? Let's attack together and kill this kid." Another old ancestor from the Six Paths Demon Sect shouted angrily. Chu Fengmian had broken into the Six Paths Demon Sect's territory, destroyed the mountain protection array, and killed an old ancestor with a single strike. No matter what, they would not let Chu Fengmian leave today. However, this old ancestor was smart. He could see that Chu Fengmian's strength had surpassed the ordinary immortal realm old ancestor. Anyone who encountered Chu Fengmian alone would be at a disadvantage. They might even be killed on the spot. Therefore, this time, the 14 old ancestors attacked at the same time. The sky was filled with demonic intent, and countless martial skills bombarded Chu Fengmian. "No matter how many of you come, I am not afraid today." Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with killing intent. Today, whoever dared to stand in Chu Fengmian's way would die. Juke, the Titanic Gate godly sword appeared in Chu Fengmian's right hand. Both swords were unsheathed at the same time. Divine light. Chu Fengmian's cultivation began to climb. In the blink of an eye, he stepped into the heavens mandate realm. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's power increased by dozens of times. Double swords shatter heaven. The 2 spiritual swords were unsheathed at the same time and slashed through the air. 2 sword lights that were tens of thousands of feet long were shot out at the same time. Then, the spiritual energy that filled the sky collided with each other. Boom! At the center of the collision of countless spiritual energies, a terrifying force erupted, causing the 6 demon peaks below to tremble. Many disciples of the Six Paths Demon Gate were killed by the tremors and turned into blood mists that filled the sky. A huge vortex appeared above Chu Fengmian's head. The blood essence and blood mist of all the warriors were swallowed by this vortex. Damn it! Demon Sovereign Nine Abyss was infuriated when he saw the disciples of the Six Paths Demon Gate being killed. He could see that Chu Fengmian had purposely used the aftershock of the sword to shake the surroundings. The power of the aftershock was of no use to ancestral sovereigns. The impact could be recovered in an instant. However, It was not fatal to the disciples of the Six Paths Demon Gate below. The disciples of the Six Paths Demon Gate were pure demonic cultivators. They were cruel and merciless. Chu Fengmian would not show any mercy to them, no matter how many they killed. The blood mist was swallowed by Chu Fengmian's body and was converted into pure spiritual energy by the Dragon War skill. Today, I will use your blood essences to help me achieve a breakthrough, so that my strength can improve further. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. Before the ancestral sovereigns could recover from their shock, another 2 sword lights were shot out. Boom! Boom! The 2 sword lights exploded in the air and sent 7 to 8 ancestral sovereigns flying. Although they were only sent flying and did not suffer any substantial damage, the ancestral sovereigns of the Six Paths Demon Gate looked gloomy. The 14 ancestral sovereigns came to besiege Chu Fengmian, but they were still sent flying by him. They could not even deal with a young fellow in the heart-tempering realm. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, they could clearly see his cultivation level. He was only in the heart-tempering realm. Even with the support of the titanic divine light, he was only an emperor in the heavenly fate realm. In their eyes, such a cultivation level was no different from an ant. However, such an ant was stepping on their faces. How could they tolerate it? What made them even angrier was that every time Chu Fengmian attacked, he would purposely lead the aftershock of the sword chi to the 6 demon peaks. The 6 demon peaks no longer had the protection of the mountain guarding formation. Every time the aftershock hit, several disciples of the Six Paths Demon Gate would be killed. The blood essence of the disciples would be devoured by Chu Fengmian. If this continued, Chu Fengmian would only become stronger. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Don't waste any more time with him. Show me your true strength. Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss shouted as if he had made a decision. The other ancestral sovereigns nodded without hesitation and shouted after hearing Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss's words. God slaying. Suddenly, a surge of spiritual energy shot up to the sky from each of the ancestral sovereigns. A total of 14 surges of spiritual energy began to condense in the air. Gradually, a gigantic formation began to take shape. The 14 ancestral sovereigns were the eyes of the formation. The power of the formation merged their strength into one. God slaying of the 6 paths. Boom! The 14 ancestral sovereigns shouted in unison. Within the formation, countless surges of spiritual energy blasted toward Chu Fengmian. When Chu Fengmian saw the 14 ancestral sovereigns condensing the formation and combining their strength, his eyes were filled with fear. However, before he could think, the surges of spiritual energy blasted toward him, not giving him any chance to react. Earth-splitting dual swords. Chu Fengmian held 2 spiritual swords in his hands. The Sword God Realm sword principle was integrated into the 2 spiritual swords. The earth-splitting sword was slashed out. Boom! Chapter 1022. The 6-path God-slaying array was the most mysterious array of the 6-path demon sects. It was also one of the foundations of the 6-path demon sects to dominate the 9 regions. The 6-path God-slaying array was able to gather the power of all the array eyes together. Chu Fengmian could still choose to defeat the 14 ancestors one by one. However, once their power was gathered together, it would be unshakable by any of the ancestors. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's 2 sword lights were shattered by the spiritual power. What a strong power! Chu Fengmian frowned. The 6-path demon sects were sects from tens of thousands of years ago. Although Chu Fengmian had heard about the 6-path demon sects, he obviously did not know much about the 6-path god-slaying array. However, this power alone was enough to deal with Chu Fengmian. The sword chi was broken, and this spiritual energy directly bombarded Chu Fengmian. It didn't give Chu Fengmian any time to breathe, and it rapidly bombarded him. Oh no! Chu Fengmian instinctively felt a sense of danger. Even when he was besieged by dozens of ancestors from the 7 sects in the ancient gladiator arena, Chu Fengmian did not have such a feeling. Because when the ancestors from the 7 sects besieged Chu Fengmian, they mostly fought on their own. Although they also used the array, it was far from being comparable to the array of the six-path demon sects. However, the power gathered by the array of the six-path demon sects had far surpassed Chu Fengmian's. In an instant, Chu Fengmian felt a chill. He felt that he was about to die. A warrior at his level could almost predict his own life and death. When he felt the power, Chu Fengmian even felt that he was about to die. The situation was very dangerous. The power of the Tree of God, support. In an instant, Chu Fengmian did not hesitate and fully released the power of the Tree of God. Previously, when Chu Fengmian was cultivating, he only devoured half of the essence blood. The other half was devoured by the Tree of God. The Tree of God had accumulated this power. When the spiritual power bombarded him, Chu Fengmian had no way to dodge it. He could only take it head-on. Chu Fengmian's aura didn't change in the slightest. However, several thick and solid roots were stationed around Chu Fengmian's body. As a result, Chu Fengmian's body was unbelievably tough. Boom! When Chu Fengmian pushed his physical body to the extreme, all of his power bombarded Chu Fengmian's body. The 14 Ancestor Wu's joint attack, with the support of the six-path God-destroying formation, had displayed the full strength of the 14 Ancestor Wu's forces perfectly. This brat is going to die. Killing this brat will remove a great problem for the Saint Emperor, Jian Shen murmured. Many eyes looked in Chu Fengmian's direction as they slowly opened their mouths. None of them felt that Chu Fengmian had any chance of surviving under such power. Even an immortal realm Ancestor Wu would not be able to withstand the joint attack of 14 Ancestor Wusless. Moreover, Chu Fengmian was only in the cultivating heart realm. Only those who had surpassed the steps of life and death could withstand such power. However, such a level would only appear in legends. It would never appear in Chu Fengmian's body. This brat, if he doesn't die, he will definitely surpass all of us in the future. He might even reach that incredible level. Demon Venerate 9 Abyss sighed as he looked in Chu Fengmian's direction. However, he felt a little relieved. Chu Fengmian's talent was too terrifying. It was so terrifying that he didn't want to be Chu Fengmian's enemy. Such an enemy must be killed in order to be at ease. Cough, cough. Just as everyone heaved a sigh of relief, a cough was heard. Then, a figure slowly walked out from the center of the spiritual power explosion. What? He didn't die? The moment Chu Fengmian walked out from the center of the spiritual power explosion, Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss and the others were stunned. They couldn't believe it. Under such a spiritual power bombardment, any one of them would have died if they had chosen to take it. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian would survive and withstand such a bombardment? However, even though Chu Fengmian managed to resist the bombardment, he still felt terrible. His body had almost been torn apart by the power of the attack. Fortunately, the Tree of God had been protecting Chu Fengmian's body. Countless roots were firmly embedded in Chu Fengmian's body, allowing him to withstand the attack. Don't give him a chance to breathe. Kill him. He barely withstood it once. It's impossible for him to withstand it a second time. The other ancestors of the 6 demon sects also reacted. In an instant, the 14 ancestors of the 6 demon sects attacked together. Another spiritual power fell from the sky and bombarded Chu Fengmian. Humph! Chu Fengmian had suffered a great loss last time. This time, Chu Fengmian naturally knew that he was no match for the 14 ancestors of the 6 demon sects. The moment the 14 ancestors of the 6 demon sects attacked Chu Fengmian's body suddenly retreated. He's trying to escape? Catch him. Seeing Chu Fengmian's action, the other 4 or 5 ancestors of the 6 demon sects gave up on attacking. Instead, they channeled their spiritual power and condensed countless spiritual power bombs, enveloping Chu Fengmian from all directions. All of Chu Fengmian's escape routes were sealed off. However, when the spiritual power bombs were about to reach Chu Fengmian's body suddenly disappeared. He disappeared in the sky under everyone's gaze. Disappeared? No. Look, there's a ray of light. The ancestors of the 6 demon sects who were present were all famous figures. They naturally knew that Chu Fengmian couldn't really disappear under such circumstances. They gathered their spiritual consciousness to investigate carefully. However, they saw an extremely fast ray of light in the sky. This ray of light was Chu Fengmian. Under Chu Fengmian's seat, there were 8 ancient war dragons pulling the war dragon treasure carriage. It rushed through the sky and rushed towards the 6 demon sex formation. What kind of speed is this? Heavenly Demon Treasure Carriage. It's the Heavenly Demon Treasure Carriage. Chapter 1023. In the 6 demon peaks, a ray of light was traveling through the sky at an extremely fast speed. This ray of light was the war dragon carriage pulled by the 8 ancient war dragons. It was once the most precious treasure of the 9 demon city, the Heavenly Demon Carriage. When Chu Fengmian was in the ancient gladiator arena, he did not take out this supreme treasure. It was not because the battle dragon treasure chariot was weak, but because the battle dragon treasure chariot's characteristics could not be used in the ancient gladiator arena. Speed. The war dragon carriage's specialty was its extreme speed. It could not be used in the small arena of the ancient gladiator arena. However, in the 6 demon peaks, in this small world, it was unimpeded. When Chu Fengmian retreated, he called out the war dragon carriage. Chu Fengmian's strength was no longer the same as before. With the support of the gigantic sword radiance, Chu Fengmian had reached the heavenly fate realm. This realm was enough for him to unleash the full power of the war dragon carriage. As the most precious treasure of the 9 demon city, the war dragon carriage was not as weak as it appeared to be. The war dragon treasure carriage's speed was enough to deceive the eyes of the 14 ancestral ancestors present at the scene. In the sky, looking at the war dragon carriage that Chu Fengmian was sitting on, all the ancestral sovereigns recognized it at first glance. It was the most precious treasure of the 9 demon city, the Heavenly Demon Carriage. Their faces turned ugly. Many experts of the 6 demon sects were actually ancestral sovereigns who had betrayed the 9 demon city. Therefore, they were very familiar with the war dragon carriage. The demon lord of the 9 demon city was almost invincible in the 9 domains. No one dared to go against him. It was not because of the demon lord's strength. The old antiques of the 7 major sects were also able to go against the demon lord. What the demon lord relied on was the war dragon carriage's extreme speed. Such speed was enough to make him invincible in the same realm. Even an ancestral sovereign would not be able to catch the war dragon carriage at full speed. Among the countless spirit artifacts in the 9 regions, the battle dragon carriage could be said to be one of the most troublesome spirit artifacts. The reason he gave it to the little demon lord was so that the little demon lord could use it to save his life. However, the little demon lord back then couldn't even use 1% of the battle dragon treasure carriage's power. In the end, it fell into Chu Fengmian's hands. Looking at Chu Fengmian's war dragon treasure carriage, every ancestor Wu's expression turned solemn. It would be truly troublesome if this spiritual weapon fell into Chu Fengmian's hands. With the battle dragon carriage's speed, even progenitor Wu would not be able to catch it. The heavenly demon treasured carriage. Only the 9 demons city's demon lord's inheritance can use it. This kid can't possibly have the demon lord's inheritance. He must have used some method to forcibly activate the heavenly demon treasure carriage. He shouldn't be able to use its full power. Demon Venerate 9 Abyss said gloomily as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Brat, do you think that by taking out the heavenly demon treasure chariot, you will be our opponent? I want to see how long you can run. Ghostly, catch him. Swoosh. Suddenly, Demon Venerate Ghostly gathered his spiritual energy and attacked. Thousands of ghost hands were formed in the sky. The target of these thousands of ghost hands was Chu Fengmian's war dragon treasure carriage. The ghost hands were densely packed together and formed a huge net that shrouded Chu Fengmian. Although the power of these ghost hands did not pose any threat to Chu Fengmian, it was enough to delay Chu Fengmian. Once Chu Fengmian was caught for a short period of time, the remaining 13 progenitors would attack together, and Chu Fengmian would definitely die. Although the war dragon treasure carriage was fast, its defense was not at its peak. At least in front of a dozen progenitors, the war dragon treasure carriage's defense was like a piece of paper. Chu Fengmian instantly saw through the 9 Abyss Demon Clan's plan. Trying to catch me? Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a cold smile. The Battle Dragon Treasure Chariot was not forcibly activated by Chu Fengmian. Instead, it had been completely refined. It could be said that even if the Demon Lord obtained the War Dragon Treasure Carriage, he would not be able to use it. There was no difference between Chu Fengmian and the Demon Lord. No matter how strong the formation is, there will be a flaw. As long as this formation is broken, you're just a bunch of ants. Chu Fengmian's mind moved and activated the War Dragon Treasure Carriage to travel through the sky. Thousands of ghost hands formed a blockade in an attempt to catch Chu Fengmian. However, the War Dragon Treasure Carriage traveled through the countless ghost hands in the sky. None of the ghost hands could touch the War Dragon Treasure Carriage. The War Dragon Treasure Carriage's speed was in the top 3 among the 9 regions' spiritual weapons. Under Chu Fengmian's control, the possibility of it being caught was almost zero. Damn it, what fast speed. Brat, do you only know how to run? If you have the ability, come and fight us head on. Demon Honorable Geely was gritting his teeth in anger. Chu Fengmian's War Dragon Treasure Carriage traveled through his ghost hands, but none of his ghost hands could touch Chu Fengmian's War Dragon Treasure Carriage. When he was about to reach the War Dragon Treasure Carriage, the War Dragon Treasure Carriage's speed would suddenly increase, catching him off guard. No matter how many tricks he had up his sleeves, they were all meaningless in front of Chu Fengmian's War Dragon Treasure Carriage. Damn it! Damn it! Demon Honorable Geely did not hesitate as he unleashed all of his spiritual energy, forming even more ghost hands in the sky. There were tens of thousands of ghost hands, almost filling up the sky. However, Chu Fengmian's War Dragon Treasure Carriage cleverly dodged through the gaps. No matter how many attacks Demon Honorable Geely threw, none of them could get close to Chu Fengmian. The War Dragon Treasure Carriage appeared and disappeared unpredictably as it traveled through the sky. Suddenly, the War Dragon Treasure Carriage changed its direction and accelerated, arriving in front of Demon Honorable Nine Abyss in an instant. Sword break. Chu Fengmian jumped down from the War Dragon Treasure Carriage and slashed at Demon Honorable Nine Abyss with his sword. His speed was so fast that Demon Honorable Nine Abyss was caught off guard and could not react in time. However, when Chu Fengmian's sword was 3 feet away from Demon Honorable Nine Abyss, a huge force suddenly appeared. It forced Chu Fengmian's sword back. It was the power of the 6-path Divine Sealing Array. Even if Demon Honorable Nine Abyss was not prepared, he still had the combined power of the 13 Supreme Ancestors. Brat, are you courting death? Demon Honorable Nine Abyss finally reacted. He looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous intent and suddenly threw a punch at Chu Fengmian. Chapter 10:24 War Dragon Treasure Carriage. In an instant, the War Dragon Treasure Carriage rushed over just as Demon Sovereign Nine Abyss's fist was about to hit Chu Fengmian's body. Swoosh! The War Dragon Treasure Carriage quickly retreated and distanced itself from Demon Sovereign Nine Abyss. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but reveal some nervousness on his face. If the power of the punch had hit Chu Fengmian, he would have been seriously injured even if he did not die. Fortunately, the War Dragon Treasure Carriage was fast enough to let Chu Fengmian escape. However, looking at Demon Sovereign Nine Abyss, Chu Fengmian frowned. Although Chu Fengmian could rely on the War Dragon Treasure Chariot to deal with Ancestor Wu, the situation was still extremely disadvantageous for him. Chu Fengmian did not come to 6 Demon Sect to deal with them. Moreover, Chu Fengmian could feel that Luo, she was in danger. Chu Fengmian could feel Luo, she's anxiety. Luo, she's situation was getting worse by the second. Chu Fengmian had to defeat all these old fellas before Luo, she was in danger. The Demon Emperor had not shown himself all this while. Apparently, he was dealing with Luo Shi. Luo Shi had the Kanglin Immortal Armor and should be able to deal with the Demon Emperor and the others. However, it was not a long-term solution. Chu Fengmian could not delay any longer. If he did not defeat these old ancestors, Chu Fengmian would not be able to rush into the 6 Demon Peaks. Chu Fengmian gritted his teeth and looked at Demon Sovereign Nine Abyss and the others. His eyes were not serious, as he looked for the weakness of the 6 God-destroying formation. Any formation should have a weakness. Any formation in the world would have a way to break it. There was no such thing as a perfect array formation in the world. There was no doubt about that. However, the more mysterious the formation was, the harder it was to detect its weakness. Especially the 6 God-destroying formation, it was extremely difficult to deal with it. The easiest way to deal with a formation was to deal with one of the formation eyes. As long as one of them was destroyed, the whole formation would collapse. However, the God-slaying formation of the 6 Daos combined the power of the 13 ancestors. No matter who Chu Fengmian was dealing with, he would be dealing with the power of the 13 ancestors at the same time. Once they came into contact, Chu Fengmian would be defeated without a doubt. He was simply invulnerable and had no openings. Invulnerable? An invincible formation? It was impossible for there to be an invincible formation in this world. Flaws. This 6 Daos God-slaying array must have its flaws. Brat, stop struggling. Many of the old ancestors of the 6 Paths Demon Gate have yet to arrive. Once they arrive, you will die. Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed smugly. It was impossible for Chu Fengmian to break through the power of the 6 Path God-slaying formation. If the battle dragged on, Chu Fengmian would be the one to lose. Moreover, their mission was not to deal with Chu Fengmian, but to stall for time. After hearing 9 Abyss words, Chu Fengmian's heart was clear. It seemed like there was also a group of people dealing with Luo Shi in the 6 Demon Peaks. Luo Shi might be able to fend them off with her Kanglin immortal armor. However, it was not a long-term solution. She was no match for several supreme old ancestors of the 6 Paths Demon Gate. I don't believe that I can't break through this formation. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. How could he be stopped by such a small formation? Chu Fengmian's mind flickered, and the War Dragon treasure chariot moved. It was extremely fast, and it dodged the countless attacks of spiritual energy. Suddenly, it charged toward another supreme ancestor. However, the bombardment this time was still meaningless. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, he was far from being able to shake the power of the 6 Path God-slaying formation. After countless failures, Demon Sovereign Gili did not plan to catch Chu Fengmian and return to the 6 Path God-slaying formation. The power of the 14 supreme old ancestors combined into one. No matter who Chu Fengmian was dealing with, he would have to withstand the power of the 14 supreme old ancestors. Ha ha, brat, don't waste your strength. Demon Sovereign Gili looked at Chu Fengmian's continuous attacks and laughed. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy attacks could not shake the 6 Path God-slaying formation at all. However, Chu Fengmian relied on the Battle Dragon treasure carriage to move at an extremely fast speed. He attacked in Supreme Old Ancestor and quickly retreated after attacking. Although Chu Fengmian's strength could not shake the 6 Path God-slaying formation, Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss and the others could not attack Chu Fengmian. The situation fell into a stalemate for a while. What a waste of strength. The few supreme ancestors looked at Chu Fengmian and couldn't help but sneer. In their point of view, Chu Fengmian's actions were no different from wasting his strength. However, Chu Fengmian's eyes became clearer and clearer as he was bombarded again and again. Consumption. The spiritual energy consumed by the 6 Path God-slaying formation was abnormal. Logically speaking, any formation would need to consume spiritual energy. However, the 6 Path God-slaying formation did not consume any spiritual energy. It was not that there was no consumption, but Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss and the others did not consume any spiritual energy. The power of the 6 Path God-slaying formation was transmitted from other places. In other words, there was the root of the 6 Path God-slaying formation. Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss and the others looked like the eye of the formation, but in fact, it was just a disguise. In that case, the eye of the formation must be hidden in another place. Every time Chu Fengmian attacked the 6 Path God-slaying formation, a special spiritual energy would be transmitted. Although it was hidden, it could not escape Chu Fengmian's eyes. Double swords shatter the sea. Chu Fengmian gathered the power of the 2 spiritual swords to the extreme. Suddenly, 2 sword lights bombarded Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss. Fool! Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss snorted. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, It was impossible for him to deal with the combined power of the 14 supreme old ancestors. Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss flicked his sleeve, and a spiritual energy came from the sky, shattering the two sword lights. However, after the two sword lights were shattered, Chu Fumian's figure suddenly disappeared from the sky. Where did he go? Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss's face darkened when he saw Chu Fumian's sudden disappearance. His eyes were filled with shock as if he had thought of something. He quickly turned his head and looked in the direction of the 6 demon peaks. A streak of light was flying toward the 6 demon peaks at an extremely fast speed. Chu Fumian felt that every time the 6-path God-slaying formation was activated, there would be a force transmitted from the 6 demon peaks. Chapter 1025. The moment Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss saw Chu Fumian rushing towards the 6 demon peaks, he felt uneasy. They were now able to contend with Chu Fumian and even force him to this point by relying on the power of the 6 God-extinguishing formation. Without the 6 God-extinguishing formation, none of them would be able to contend with Chu Fumian. 14 old ancestors of the Wu family joining forces and 14 old ancestors of the Wu family joining forces were two completely different concepts. Especially in the ancient gladiator arena, Chu Fumian was able to kill 8 ancestor noblemen and escape unscathed under the joint attack of more than 20 ancestor noblemen. This caused Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss and the others to panic. Stop him! Kill! Now is the best chance to kill him. Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss looked solemn, and murderous intent surged in his eyes. Now that Chu Fumian wanted to rush into the 6 demon peaks and break the formation core, it was the best chance for them to kill Chu Fumian. Hearing Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss's command, the other 13 old ancestors gathered their spiritual energy at the same time. The power of 14 old ancestors turned into a huge fist wind and bombarded Chu Fumian from the sky. The power of the fist tore the space apart and blasted towards Chu Fumian at an extreme speed. Chu Fumian shuddered at the moment when the power of the fist wind locked onto him. It was definitely not difficult to resist the power of the fist, but there was only one chance. If he failed this time, Demon Sovereign 9 Abyss would definitely guard the formation core and not give Chu Fumian any chance. Chu Fumian finally found an opportunity. If he gave up, he might not have the chance to break the 6 God-extinguishing formation. Fight! Chu Fumian clenched his teeth. He could not give up this opportunity. As long as he could break the 6 God-extinguishing formation, these old ancestors would be defeated by Chu Fumian. At that time, Chu Fumian could rush into the 6 demon peaks and look for Luo Shi. How could Chu Fumian give up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Immediately, Chu Fumian did not consider retreating. Instead, he drove the Battle Dragon treasure carriage and rushed towards the 6 demon peaks. The speed of the War Dragon carriage was pushed to the extreme. In less than a breath's time, Chu Fumian had rushed into the 6 demon peaks. Chu Fumian opened up his spiritual sense to search the area. Suddenly, he saw a palace. In this palace, there was a huge formation eye. It was the formation eye of the 6-path God-slaying formation. A formation like the 6-path God-slaying formation was clearly one of the highest level formations in the 6-path demonic gates. It required an enormous amount of energy to activate. The moment Chu Fumian approached the eye of the array, he felt a surging spiritual energy fluctuation. Damn it! This brat has found the eye of the formation. The 9 Abyss Demon Sovereign's face turned gloomy when he saw Chu Fumian rushing towards the palace. However, a sinister smile soon appeared in his eyes. So what if they found it? That punch was already closing in on Chu Fumian. At the same time, the moment Chu Fumian approached the edge of the palace, he also felt that the pressure was getting closer and closer. Even when he raised his head, it was enough to see that this punch was less than 100 meters away from Chu Fumian. Creation. Chu Fumian's mind moved. The power of his natal sword origin condensed at the tip of the sword. The creation sword radiance soared into the sky. The moment the creation sword gleam was unleashed, it clashed with the fist that broke through the air. This creation sword radiance was less than 30 feet long. Under the fist that was condensed with the power of the sky, it was insignificant. However, the moment this seemingly small sword glow collided with the fist wind, a crack was forcefully torn open in the fist wind. The power of creation, the strongest power in the world, lived up to its name. The sword edge condensed with the power of creation could not be matched by any power. It was a full 90% of its power. Under the creation sword gleam, only 10% of its power struck Chu Fengmian's body. Boom! The power of this punch bombarded Chu Fengmian's body. Long before the power of this punch bombarded Chu Fengmian's body, a layer of dragon scales condensed on Chu Fengmian's body. The power of this punch erupted. Chu Fengmian's body only swayed a little. Then, without hesitation, he rushed toward the palace again. The creation sword radiance had already neutralized 90% of the power of the fist wind. To Chu Fengmian, it could not even cause him a slight injury. He's not dead? Oh no! The smiles on the faces of Demon Venerate Nine Abyss and the others froze again. They had thought that Chu Fengmian would definitely die under this punch. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian would not be affected at all, before they could attack again? Suddenly, a 10,000-foot-long creation sword radiance shone from the 6 demon peaks. The palace in front of Chu Fengmian was razed to the ground by the 10,000-foot-long creation sword radiance. The formation core was also shattered by the 10,000-foot-long creation sword radiance. At the same time, the 6-path god-slaying formation in the sky shattered with a crack and disappeared as the 10,000-foot-long creation sword radiance appeared. The 6-path god-slaying formation was broken. The trump card that Demon Venerate Nine Abyss and the others relied on to deal with Chu Fengmian had disappeared at this moment. Oh no! Let's go! Demon Venerate Nine Abyss was the first to react. He shouted and was about to leave. Previously, when Puppet fought Chu Fengmian alone, he could not even withstand a single blow from Chu Fengmian. If it were any of them, they would not be able to resist Chu Fengmian. The other ancestral sovereigns also reacted at the same time. Their eyes were filled with panic and they were about to leave. You still want to leave? Die, all of you. Chu Fengmian's killing intent surged. The shadow of the ancient god of slaughter appeared behind Chu Fengmian. Soaring killing intent burst out. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's body flew rapidly to the sky. With the help of the War Dragon treasure carriage, Chu Fengmian's speed was many times faster than Demon Venerate Nine Abyss and the others. Slaughter the heavens. A blood-red color emerged from Chu Fengmian's creation sword radiance. The blood-red color was the color of the purest killing intent. The sword that represented slaughter the heavens slashed at Demon Venerate Nine Abyss. Demon Venerate Nine Abyss was panicking. Just as he was about to gather his spiritual power to resist, Chu Fengmian's creation sword radiance had already arrived in front of him. Without any suspense, Demon Venerate Nine Abyss's body was crushed under Chu Fengmian's creation sword radiance. Chapter 10:26. Not good. Inform the Saint Emperor and summon the Heavenly Demon Lord. Only the Heavenly Demon Lord can suppress him. Demon Honorable Gili shouted. Demon Honorable Nine Abyss was killed by Chu Fengmian as soon as the 6-path god vanquishing array was broken. It was impossible for them to fight against Chu Fengmian now. A few old ancestors hurriedly shouted after hearing Demon Honorable Gili's words. They seemed to be calling for someone. However, before their voices could be heard, the sky was already filled with sword light. You still want to call for help? Go to hell. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. The few ancestral sovereigns were smashed into pieces by the sword light. They did not even have the chance to speak. However, Demon Honorable Gili and the remaining old ancestors took advantage of this opportunity to fly towards the 6 demon peaks. Chu Fengmian would not be able to catch up with them in a short time. Chu Fengmian did not plan to chase after them. Even if Chu Fengmian had the War Dragon treasure carriage, it would not be easy for him to kill all of these old ancestors. The most important thing now was to save Luo Shi. Let's go. Chu Fengmian did not stop as he flew towards the 6-path demon sects. The disciples of the 6-path demon sects retreated when they saw Chu Fengmian coming over. No one dared to stop Chu Fengmian. Luo Shi's direction. Over there. Chu Fengmian secretly sensed Luo Shi's aura. There was another world in the Six Demon Peaks. It was bigger than a country. The sky was filled with demonic intent. At a glance, there were millions of martial artists in the Six Demon Peaks. I never thought that the Six-Path Demon sects had accumulated such a terrifying power. Millions of martial artists? It was not a small number for the 7 sections. However, Chu Fengmian was not interested in the Six-Path Demon sects. He flew towards Luo Shi's direction. It was in the middle of a mountain range. In the sky, several spiritual energies were colliding. A few old ancestors of the Six-Path Demon sects were besieging a graceful figure in the sky. Luo Shi. Chu Fengmian's heart finally calmed down when he saw the graceful figure. It seemed that nothing had happened to Luo Shi. However, Luo Shi's current situation was still extremely dangerous. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw that there were still 8 patriarchs Wu in the sky, surrounding and attacking Luo Shi. As for Luo Shi, she could only dodge under the siege. Luo Shi was protected by the Kanglin immortal armor, which was enough to neutralize most of the power of these ancestor Wu, allowing Luo Shi to deal with these people. Beside him, there was another figure standing in the air. Devil Emperor. This figure was none other than the Demon Emperor. In Chu Fengmian's heart, he was the person he feared the most in the Six-Path Demon sects. The Demon Emperor was indeed not dead. Those who had died in the ancient gladiator arena were all his clones. Now, the Demon Emperor's aura seemed to be even stronger than when he was in the ancient fighting arena. Clearly, this person had gained new insights from the life and death battle with Chu Fengmian in the ancient gladiator arena. His strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and he had already stepped into the Fate realm. Whether it was Chu Fengmian or the Demon Emperor, with their accumulation, once they stepped into the Fate realm, their strength would improve by leaps and bounds. Luo Shi, don't struggle in vain. Do you think that Chu Fengmian can save you? It's a pity that he can't even protect himself now. I've already set up the 6-path God-destroying formation outside. Once that kid comes, only death awaits him. In the air, the Demon Emperor looked at Luo Shi, who was being besieged, and said coldly, 6-path God-destroying formation. When the Demon Emperor was talking about other things, Luo Shi's expression didn't change much. After all, she knew Chu Fengmian's strength best. Even if the 6-path demon sects wanted to deal with Chu Fengmian, they would have to pay a great price. However, when she heard about the 6-path God-destroying formation, Luo Shi's eyes showed some panic. As a disciple of the 6-path demon sects, she naturally knew how terrifying the 6-path God-destroying formation was. Luo Shi's momentary panic had revealed a flaw in her plan. The 8 patriarchs who were besieging Luo Shi suddenly attacked at this moment. Boundless spiritual energy bombarded Luo Shi. Boom! Luo Shi was also condensing spiritual energy to defend herself. However, the combined strength of the 8 patriarchs far exceeded her strength. On Luo Shi's body, the Kanglin immortal armor was constantly trembling. Luo Shi had already been besieged for a long time. The Kanglin immortal armor on her body was almost losing its power. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible for Luo Shi to continue struggling. Luo Shi's eyes showed some despair. It seemed like she was really going to die here today. Bang! Under the bombardment of spiritual energy, Luo Shi's body was directly sent flying. The Kanglin immortal armor took most of the impact, but it was still enough to severely injure Luo Shi. Catch her! The Demon Emperor ordered coldly. Yes, the 8 patriarchs hurriedly obeyed and activated their spiritual energy to suppress Luo Shi. The demonic intent in the sky turned into a pitch-black pagoda and fell from the sky. At this moment, a soaring sword light suddenly slashed through the sky. The soaring sword light's target was the pitch-black pagoda. Crack! In the next instant, the pitch-black pagoda was shattered into pieces by the sword light that soared into the sky, shattering on the spot. None of the people present seemed to understand this sudden turn of events. What's going on? Who attacked? Where did the sword light come from? The 8 patriarchs were still looking around, trying to find the direction where the sword light came from. A bunch of old men, How dare you touch my woman? A cold voice suddenly resounded. At the same time, two more sword lights appeared and slashed directly at the 8 patriarchs. Hearing this familiar voice, Luo Shi's eyes suddenly shone with an incredulous light. Chu Fengyan. The moment she heard this voice, tears flowed from the corner of Luo Shi's eyes. Chu Fengyan really came. Luo Shi did not dare to believe that Chu Fengyan would really come to the 6 demon gates and risk his life. However, Chu Fengyan still came and barged into the 6 demon gates alone. I'm late. Chapter 10:27. For Chu Fengyan, everything around him was his Achilles heel. Whether it was Luo Shi or Han Yueli, they were Chu Fengyan's Achilles heel. The moment Chu Fengyan saw the injuries on Luo Shi's body, the killing intent in his eyes could no longer be concealed. However, when Chu Fengyan's gaze shifted to Luo Shi's injuries, his gaze quickly recovered. Don't worry, I'll take you away soon. Before that, I'll make these people pay the price. After saying this, Chu Fengyan's mind moved. A drop of blood essence flew out from his fingertip and flew towards Luo Shi. It began to integrate into Luo Shi's body, healing her injuries. Chu Fengyan's blood essence was purer and stronger than the blood essence of an ancient war dragon. It was comparable to all elixirs. After doing all this, Chu Fengyan looked at the sky, at the 8 ancestors who had besieged Chu Fengyan just now. Soaring killing intent emerged from Chu Fengyan's body. Chu Fengyan's eyes were blood red. His murderous aura was so strong that it made people shudder. Chu Fengyan, why are you here? The moment Demon Emperor saw Chu Fengyan, his eyes were slightly absent-minded. It seemed that he did not expect Chu Fengyan to appear here. Previously, outside of the 6 demon peaks, he had already set up the 6-path god-slaying formation to deal with Chu Fengyan. With the power of the 6-path god-slaying formation and the cooperation of 15 ancestors, it was a piece of cake to deal with Chu Fengyan. Therefore, even the Demon Emperor did not expect Chu Fengyan's appearance. Why can't I be here? Chu Fengyan looked at the Demon Emperor, then looked at the 8 ancestors, and said with killing intent, Are you the ones who injured Luo Shi just now? That's right. One of the Supreme Patriarchs said directly. At the same time, these ancestor Wushu had begun to accumulate their strength secretly. Although it was their first time seeing Chu Fengyan, they were not unfamiliar with the name Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan was the one who killed the 8 incarnations of the Demon Emperor in the ancient gladiator arena. Thus, they wanted to capture Luo Shi so that they could use her to take care of Chu Fengyan. Now that the main character was here, Luo Shi was no longer important. Brat, how dare you come to the 6-path demon gate alone? Today, we'll make sure you don't return. Another supreme progenitor said coldly. Kill him. Without any hesitation, these old ancestors took the initiative to attack. They had already gathered their strength to the maximum. He faced Chu Fengyan's palm attack. The other old ancestors also unleashed their killer moves to kill Chu Fengyan. Very well, since you dare to hurt Luo Shi, none of you can leave today. Only your blood essence can make up for your losses. Chu Fengyan unsheathed his 2 spiritual swords at the same time as he looked at the ancestral patriarchs. At the same time, his anger and killing intent instantly died, the 2 spiritual swords blood red. Slaughter the heavens. The slaughter the heavens sword technique was unleashed at this moment. Together with Chu Fengyan's killing intent, it was a terrifying power. The 2 sword edges slashed towards the sky. The power of old ancestor Wu was unable to withstand Chu Fengyan's 2 sword edges. It was all shattered. What kind of power is this? The power of the 8 old ancestors was instantly destroyed by Chu Fengyan's 2 swords. This kind of power was beyond the imagination of those old ancestors. They never thought that Chu Fengyan's strength had reached such a level. Even the Demon Emperor did not expect it. When Chu Fengyan fought with the Demon Emperor last time, his strength was far from being as terrifying as it was now. Chu Fengyan must die. The Demon Emperor's eyes were filled with murderous intent. From his palm, a pitch-black dagger slowly condensed. Suddenly, the Demon Emperor's figure disappeared. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's swords had already destroyed everything in their path. Then, they soared into the sky. The two swords had locked onto the two ancestor nothingness. Die! Boom! As soon as the swords passed, the bodies of the two old ancestors were penetrated by the swords. Then, there was a burst of explosion, and they turned into a cloud of blood mist. This blood mist was swallowed by Chu Fengmian in an instant to replenish Chu Fengmian's strength. When Chu Fengmian refined this blood mist to increase his strength, suddenly, a pitch-black light pierced towards Chu Fengmian. This light was none other than the Demon Emperor, who was holding a pitch-black dagger. The way of assassination. This ray of light was the pinnacle of the ancient assassination Tao. A single slash was enough to determine life and death. Under this slash, death was almost certain. The moment when the blade locked onto him, Chu Fengmian's hair stood on end. He felt the terrifying killing intent. Now you want to sneak up on me? It's too late. Chu Fengmian suddenly shouted coldly. For a while, he flicked his sleeve and suddenly grabbed the pitch-black dagger. This move was simply beyond anyone's expectation. Even the Demon Emperor was the same. When the Demon Emperor was about to get close to Chu Fengmian, he was suddenly swept away by this force on the spot. He was directly forced to retreat dozens of miles. The pitch-black dagger in his hand was also shattered and disappeared. And beside the Demon Emperor stood an old man. This old man's aura was extremely terrifying. It was more terrifying than any old ancestor that Chu Fengmian had ever seen. Heavenly Demon Aura. This person is the Heavenly Demon Master? What a strong power. This power is simply beyond the immortal realm. Beyond the life and death steps. There is actually such a person. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but show some fear in his eyes. The Heavenly Demon Master in front of him was stronger than anyone Chu Fengmian had ever seen. Chu Fengmian felt that this person had even vaguely surpassed the life and death steps and was about to approach a new realm. Most of the warriors in the 9 regions felt that the immortal realm was the highest realm, but Chu Fengmian knew that there was another realm in the immortal realm. The Emperor realm. The aura of the Heavenly Demon Master in front of him had already surpassed most of the immortal realm old ancestors. This person's strength was already infinitely close to the Emperor realm. I didn't expect there to be such a person. Chapter 10:28. Being defeated by Chu Fengmian in the ancient gladiator arena was the greatest humiliation of his life. Throughout his life, the Demon Emperor looked down on everyone and was invincible. He had never been defeated by anyone in the same realm. However, he was defeated by Chu Fengmian in the 9 regions genius competition. This was like an inner demon to the Demon Emperor, constantly bothering him. The Demon Emperor's aura skyrocketed by more than 10 times at this moment. Billowing demonic intent surrounded his body, strengthening it. The Demon Emperor finally displayed his full strength, the full strength of a heavenly mandate realm expert. In an instant, the Demon Emperor's strength was 10 times stronger than when he was in the ancient gladiator arena. Although the battle with Chu Fengmian planted an inner demon in MOD's heart, it also encouraged MOD to take a step forward and step out of the Fate realm. As long as he killed Chu Fengmian, the Demon Emperor's inner demon would be removed. In the 9 regions, he would be invincible and no one would be able to stop him. After stepping into the heavenly mandate realm, the Demon Emperor's strength was more than 1 level stronger than before. Now, he wanted to defeat Chu Fengmian personally and once again embark on the path of invincibility. The Demon Emperor is born. The whole world submits. Heavenly Demon God Fist. The Demon Emperor roared loudly. His strength gathered in the wind of his fist as he faced Chu Fengmian's punch. The moment the wind of the fist was thrown, demonic intent filled the sky and turned into the appearance of heavenly demons, roaring in the sky. Under the support of the demons, they bombarded Chu Fengmian. Heavenly Mandate Realm? Even if you've stepped into the Heavenly Mandate Realm, you're still just an ant in front of me. Break from me. Chu Fengmian didn't care at all. From his left and right hands, 2 forces of ice and fire condensed at the same time and integrated into the sword. The power of the divine body of ice and fire was activated and added to the two spiritual swords. Two-sword Chi soared into the sky and swept across. In front of the two swords, the demons were shattered on the spot. Even the Demon Emperor's wind of the fist was torn to pieces. Demon Emperor, I'd like to see how many of your incarnations can save you today. Chu Fengmian's sword tore apart the fist wind. His body moved, and he suddenly rushed towards the Demon Emperor. There were only a few people who could cultivate the Nirvana divine body to the last level. Chu Fengmian had already killed 8 of the Demon Emperor's incarnations. The Demon Emperor before him was most likely his original body. As long as Chu Fengmian killed the Demon Emperor before him, there would be no more Demon Emperors in the 9 regions. How could this be? Seeing Chu Fengmian's sword tearing apart his fist wind, the Demon Emperor roared in disbelief. He had stepped into the Sky Mandate realm a step ahead of Chu Fengmian. In his mind, defeating Chu Fengmian should be a piece of cake for him after stepping into the Sky Mandate realm. However, this time around, the gap between him and Chu Fengmian was even greater than when they had fought in the Ancient Era's arena. It was as if Chu Fengmian was the one breaking through to the Destiny realm instead of the Demon Emperor. I don't believe that I can't kill you. I'm the Demon Emperor, the Demon Monarch. I'm a genius. No one in the 9 regions can stop me. The Demon Emperor roared loudly. Demonic will filled the sky again and condensed. The demonic will in the 6 demon peaks was almost endless. The demonic will condensed, and the Demon Emperor's original body was revealed. He took on the appearance of the primogenitor heavenly demon. His every move contained a monstrous demonic will that was enough to destroy everything. All-directional sacrifice. Countless purple flames burned from the Demon Emperor's body. He was burning the power of the demon body to accumulate power. A purple spear condensed in the Demon Emperor's hand and pierced towards Chu Fengmian's chest. All-directional demonic spear? Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold when he saw the purple spear condensed in the Demon Emperor's hand. If it's the real all-directional demonic spear, I might be a little afraid. However, this mere phantom wants to deal with me? Break it. While speaking, Chu Fengmian held the spiritual sword in his hand. Another shocking sword light soared into the sky. A sword and a spear collided in the sky. Gradually, the power of the purple spear was broken into pieces in the sky. Puff! The purple spear was broken. The Demon Emperor took a few steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The purple spear was condensed by the power of the demon body. Now that it was broken, the backlash almost made the Demon Emperor pass out. What was even more unacceptable was that he was not a match for Chu Fengmian even after he had burned his demon body and used such a method of mutual destruction. The Demon Emperor was invincible. No one could compete with him. However, Chu Fengmian seemed to be the Demon Emperor's nemesis. He defeated the Demon Emperor consecutively. Suppress. Chu Fengmian waved his hand. It turned into a huge claw of the war dragon. It fell from the sky and bombarded the Demon Emperor's body. The Demon Emperor's body was struck down to the ground by the war dragon's claw. He was firmly suppressed and could not move. In an instant, the Demon Emperor was suppressed by Chu Fengmian. The other ancestral sovereigns were shocked for a long time after witnessing this scene. Even Luo, she was a little stunned. Even though Luo, she knew that Chu Fengmian's strength was not the same as before, she did not expect Chu Fengmian's strength to be so powerful. The Demon Emperor, who had broken through the Destiny realm, could not even withstand one move from Chu Fengmian. Save me! Save me! The Demon Emperor no longer cared about his dignity and shouted loudly. He was suppressed by Chu Fengmian's war dragon's claw. Just as Chu Fengmian had guessed, the Demon Emperor in front of him was actually his original body. Once his original body fell, the Demon Emperor would really die. Even if he had the Nirvana divine body, he would only die. Let go of the Holy Emperor. The other supreme ancestors were stunned when they saw the Demon Emperor defeated so easily. They only reacted when they heard the Demon Emperor's words. Countless spiritual energy bombarded Chu Fengmian in an attempt to save the Demon Emperor from Chu Fengmian's hands. A bunch of old men. How dare you come to save me? Go to hell. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. It was these people who had hurt Luo Shi. They must die. Boom! The war dragon's claw fell from the sky again. In an instant, another two supreme ancestors were killed by the war dragon's claw. Their bodies were shattered, and their essence and blood were all devoured by Chu Fengmian. Go, 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 and inform the heavenly demon lord. The other supreme ancestors were already trembling when they saw this scene. They no longer dared to get close to Chu Fengmian. Instead, they moved and flew in one direction. Chapter 10:29. Those who besieged Luo Shi today had to die. Since Chu Fengmian had already started a massacre in the six demon sects, he didn't mind killing a few more. Moreover, the blood essence of these ancestors was the best tonic for Chu Fengmian. It was enough for Chu Fengmian to devour and refine it to further enhance his strength. It was to prepare for Chu Fengmian's breakthrough to the heavenly fate realm. As long as Chu Fengmian stepped into the heavenly fate realm, his strength would undergo an earth-shattering change. Chu Fengmian waved his hand in the air, and a surge of spiritual power burst out, turning into countless sword chi in the air. Bang! Bang! The countless sword chi chased after the four ancestors. No matter how fast they were nothing in front of Chu Fengmian's sword chi. Seeing the approaching sword chi, the four ancestral sovereigns exchanged glances with one another. They gathered their spiritual energy and formed a barrier to defend against the sword chi. However, before the barrier could be formed, it was mercilessly shattered by the sword chi. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. The remaining sword chi pierced through the remaining four ancestors on the spot and turned them into clouds of blood mist in the air. Chu Fengmian waved his sleeve, and the blood essence of these ancestors were all devoured by Chu Fengmian. The 8 ancestors who besieged Luo Shi just now were all killed by Chu Fengmian. There were a total of 8 ancestors. Their blood essence were all devoured by Chu Fengmian and refined in Chu Fengmian's body. In addition to the ancestors who were killed by Chu Fengmian outside, there were more than 10 ancestors who died in Chu Fengmian's hands. Their blood essence was refined by Chu Fengmian and turned into endless spiritual power. Chu Fengmian felt that his strength was about to break through the critical point. Just a little bit more, and he could truly break through and step into the heavenly fate realm. Your blood essence will turn into my strength and allow me to take the last step. Chu Fengmian looked at the Demon Emperor and shouted coldly. As long as he killed the Demon Emperor and devoured the Demon Emperor's blood essence, Chu Fengmian's strength would take another step forward and truly step into the heavenly fate realm. Boom! At this moment, the surrounding sky suddenly turned pitch black. Layers of dark clouds covered the sky and covered the sun, shrouding every trace of light. These layers of dark clouds were none other than demonic will, the purest demonic will. The monstrous demonic will seemed to want to devour everything around it. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian sensed an extremely terrifying aura from the demonic will land. The moment he sensed this terrifying aura, Chu Feng's expression changed drastically and became gloomy. Luo Shi, who was standing beside Chu Fengmian, began to tremble. Under this power, even Luo Shi, who had become a ruler, trembled. This power, Lord Heavenly Demon, it's Lord Heavenly Demon. Countless disciples of the 6 demon sects and the 6 demon peaks knelt down to show their respect when they felt this aura. Heavenly Demon Supremacy. Heavenly Demon Supremacy has come out of seclusion. Luo Shi's voice couldn't help but tremble a little when she mentioned the Sky Demon. No one in the 6 Paths demon sects dared to mention this name. Only the Demon Emperor suddenly burst out laughing the moment he sensed this power. Uncle Tian, save me. The Demon Emperor was suppressed by Chu Fengmian's War Dragon Claw. He used up all his strength to shout loudly. The arrival of this aura was like a life-saving straw for the Demon Emperor. He desperately wanted to grab it. Umph! A cold snort sounded. In the sky, in the boundless demonic will land, an old man slowly walked out. The old man's appearance was extremely ordinary, but everyone who saw him couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. They didn't even dare to make an enemy out of him. This kind of feeling could only be felt by an extremely powerful martial artist. A martial artist who is so powerful that he struck fear in others. Heavenly Demon. This person is the Heavenly Demon Supremacy. What a strong power. This power has surpassed the immortal realm. It has surpassed the life and death steps. How could there be such a person? Chu Fengmian looked at Kong with a hint of fear in his eyes. The Heavenly Demon's supremacy in front of him was stronger than anyone Chu Fengmian had ever seen. Chu Fengmian felt that this person had even surpassed the life and death steps and was approaching a whole new realm. Most of the martial artists in the 9 territories felt that the immortal realm was the highest realm, but Chu Fengmian knew that there was another realm above the immortal realm. The Emperor realm. The aura of this Heavenly Demon Supremacy had already surpassed most of the immortal realm's old ancestors. This person's strength was infinitely close to the Emperor realm. I didn't expect there to be such a master. Chu Fengmian felt that this was extremely tricky. The strength of the 6 Paths Demon Sex was beyond his imagination. The Emperor realm was an extremely rare figure, even in the prosperous era of martial Dao. He didn't expect there to be such a person hidden in the 6 Paths Demon Sex. However, Chu Fengmian could vaguely see that the Heavenly Demon Supremacy hadn't really reached the Emperor realm. He was just close to it. A Heavenly Demon Supremacy who is close to the Emperor realm. This is going to be troublesome. Chu Fengmian's eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of gloominess. The appearance of such a master was indeed beyond Chu Fengmian's imagination. Chu Fengmian originally thought that the supremacies of the 6 Paths Demon Sex were all young people like Luo, Shi, and the others. Now, it seemed that this Heavenly Demon Supremacy wasn't like that. He was more like an old antique, a true master of the 6 Paths Demon Sex. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, it was easy for him to deal with the old ancestors. However, the moment he met this Heavenly Demon Supremacy, Chu Fengmian felt that the pressure from this Heavenly Demon Supremacy was much greater than the 6 Paths God Extinguishing Array. The strength of this Heavenly Demon Supremacy was even greater than the 6 Paths God Extinguishing Array formed by the 15 old ancestors. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy ignored Chu Fengmian and looked at the Demon Emperor coldly. His tone was filled with reprimand. "You're so useless. Demon Emperor, as the Demon Emperor of the 6 Paths Demon Sex, how could you let the 6 Paths Demon Sex be destroyed like this? What a waste of your talent." "Yes, Uncle Tion. This junior is incompetent and has insulted the reputation of the 6 Paths Demon Sex." The Demon Emperor put away all his arrogance in front of this Heavenly Demon Supremacy and said respectfully. Chapter 10:30. The Demon Emperor shouted at the top of his lungs when he saw the Heavenly Demon Supremacy. As long as he could capture Chu Fengmian alive, the Demon Emperor would be able to obtain the inheritance of Chu Fengmian's body. In that case, he would be able to make up for the loss of 8 of his incarnations. Now that Chu Fengmian had such strength in the heart-refining realm, the Demon Emperor knew clearly how terrifying Chu Fengmian's body was. If the Demon Emperor could devour Chu Fengmian's body, he would be able to take another step forward. This person has a shocking encounter. Uncle Heavenly Demon, please don't kill him. Capture him alive. The Demon Emperor said hurriedly to the Heavenly Demon Supremacy. He was afraid that the Heavenly Demon Supremacy would kill Chu Fengmian in a fit of anger. Shocking encounter? The Heavenly Demon Supremacy looked at Chu Fengmian after hearing the Demon Emperor's words. When he saw that Chu Fengmian's body was only in the heart-refining realm, the Heavenly Demon Supremacy was slightly shocked. He thought it would be at least an immortal realm old ancestor or an old antique who came to cause trouble in the 6 demon gates. He didn't expect that it would be a young man like Chu Fengmian who was only in the heart-refining realm. A heart-refining realm martial artist was enough to kill Ancestor Wu and even defeat the Demon Emperor, forcing the Demon Emperor into a desperate situation. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy knew what this meant. Battle Dragon Bloodline, innate godly body, Sword Dao in the Sword God realm. Celestial Demon Supremacy glanced at Chu Fengmian and saw through almost all of Chu Fengmian's trump cards. Who would have thought that such a character would appear in the 9 regions? An anomaly, an anomaly. Very well. Since you've lost 8 incarnations, I'll capture him and let you recover your strength. Suddenly, the heavenly demon supremacy changed the topic and looked at Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could feel the immense pressure from the heavenly demon supremacy. It was a pressure that wanted to crush him. The 6 demon gates is not a place where you can be bullied. Luo Shi, as the supremacy of the 6 demon gates, betraying the sect is a crime punishable by death. And you, Chu Fengmian, you killed countless disciples of the 6 Taoist Devil Gate. You deserve the death penalty as well. I'll capture the 2 of you and hand you over to the Devil Emperor, said the celestial demon lord slowly. His words were like a supreme order, a judgment. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi were prisoners waiting to be judged. Damn it! Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. The moment the heavenly demon supremacy appeared, Chu Fengmian was already thinking of how to escape unscathed. In terms of strength, Chu Fengmian's side was at an absolute disadvantage. Even if there were 10 Chu Fengmians, they still wouldn't be a match for this celestial devil supremacy. However, Chu Fengmian still held the initiative because the Devil Emperor was still in his hands. Capture. Chu Fengmian made a sudden move and grabbed the Demon Emperor with his Battle Dragon Claw. Right now, the only way to escape was to capture the Demon Emperor. With the Demon Emperor's status, it was enough to make the heavenly demon supremacy wary. Humph, you want to capture someone in front of this old man? The heavenly demon supremacy snorted coldly and suddenly made a move. His speed was astonishing. Even Chu Fengmian could only see a shadow of the heavenly demon supremacy at a glance. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's Battle Dragon Claw was smashed by a surge of spirit energy. The Demon Emperor was rescued by the heavenly demon supremacy. Chu Fengmian's speed was not worth mentioning in front of the heavenly demon supremacy. Damn it, boy. How did you provoke such a terrifying enemy? This old man is no longer old Ancestor Wu. He has already surpassed the life and death steps and stepped into the Emperor realm. Although he hasn't fully stepped into the Emperor realm, he is already half a step into the Emperor realm. You can't be his opponent. Xing Xian suddenly woke up in his mind because of the heavenly demon supremacy's aura. He also felt the danger of Chu Fengmian. It was different from before. Although Chu Fengmian had experienced countless dangers and escaped from the hands of the Grim Reaper again and again, this time was the most dangerous. Half a step into the Emperor realm. This was a realm completely different from the life and death steps and the immortal realm. Half-step Emperor realm. Quasi-Emperor. Hearing Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengmian's face became even more embarrassed. Although he had already guessed the heavenly demon supremacy's realm, he didn't expect it to be the same as Chu Fengmian's guess. This heavenly demon supremacy was no longer old Ancestor Wu who was in the immortal realm. He had stepped into a new realm, the Emperor realm. He was only one step away from the Emperor realm. Such a realm was called a quasi-emperor. However, even a quasi-emperor was a completely different realm from the immortal realm. It was difficult for 1 out of 100 old ancestors to step into the quasi-emperor realm. Such a character would be a famous master even if it was 10,000 years ago or in the ancient era. A quasi-emperor was much more difficult to deal with than a dozen old ancestors. Oh, boy, it seems that you know a lot. You can even see this old man's realm? Hearing the words quasi-emperor, a hint of surprise flashed in the heavenly demon supremacy's eyes. In the current era, there weren't many people in the younger generation who knew this title. It seems that you really have a shocking encounter. You can even use the full power of the gigantic gate divine sword. Those guys in the Tianjin sect couldn't figure out even after 10,000 years, but you can use it. It seems that you're related to the Sword Dao sect 10,000 years ago. The heavenly demon supremacy was much more experienced than any of the old ancestors. You could almost guess all of Chu Fengmian's secrets. Old man, you know a lot. Chu Fengmian looked at the heavenly demon supremacy without any panic on his face. At this point, there was no point in panicking. It would be better to think of a way to leave the 6 demon sects. However, the heavenly demon supremacy's speed was too fast. Chu Fengmian's plan to capture the demon emperor and use him as a hostage was no longer feasible. There was only one way left. Let's fight. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. So what if he was a quasi-emperor? The ancient war dragon was not afraid of anything. He was not afraid of even a quasi-emperor. You want to fight with me? Chapter 1031. The heavenly demon supremacy had already stepped out of the quasi-emperor realm and reached a completely different realm. Only he knew how powerful a quasi-emperor was. Although quasi-emperors were only one step away from the ninth step of the life and death steps, the immortal realm, the difference in strength was enormous. The gap was like a chasm that could not be crossed. Chu Fengmian naturally knew how powerful a quasi-emperor was. However, he had no other choice but to fight. The heavenly demon supremacy was determined to kill Chu Fengmian. Even if Chu Fengmian wanted to escape, it was almost impossible for him to escape from a quasi-emperor. Only death would await him if he tried to escape. It was better to fight with the heavenly demon supremacy to find an opportunity. As long as he could find an opportunity to fight the heavenly demon supremacy, Chu Fengmian could take Luo Shi and leave the 6 demon peaks. As long as they left the 6 demon peaks, Chu Fengmian could use the Cloud Feather Palace to teleport away. Attack! Chu Fengmian did not hesitate and suddenly attacked. The power of his ice-fire divine body was pushed to the extreme. The power of ice and fire was integrated into the sword. At the same time, the sword will of the sword god realm burst out at the same time, adding to the blade. Behind Chu Fengmian, there was the shadow of an ancient god of slaughter. Chu Fengmian could not hold back when fighting against the heavenly demon supremacy. If a quasi-emperor attacked with his full strength, Chu Fengmian could be killed instantly. Facing a quasi-emperor, Chu Fengmian erupted with his full strength. The heavenly demon supremacy was too dangerous. Chu Fengmian did not even prepare to test his strength. He could only erupt with his full strength. 2 rays of sword light soared into the sky and slashed towards the heavenly demon supremacy. Luo Shi, who was beside Chu Fengmian, was also aware of how dangerous the celestial demon supremacy was. She moved her hands and shot out countless demonic intent, which turned into iron chains that flew towards the celestial demon supremacy. A mere ant dares to make an enemy out of me. The heavenly demon supremacy looked at Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's attack and said disdainfully. It was as if he was looking at a few ants struggling. The celestial demon supremacy raised his hand slowly as the 2 sword lights approached him. With a tap of his finger, Chu Fengmian's 2 streaks of sword chi and Luo Shi's chains were shattered. With a single finger, Zhang Xian neutralized all of the attacks. Once old ancestor Wu was locked onto by Chu Fengmian's sword, he would definitely die. The power was self-evident. Now, Chu Fengmian didn't hold back at all. The sword intent of the sword god realm and the power of the ice-fire divine body had been activated. However, the heavenly demon supremacy easily broke it with a single finger. It was as if Chu Fengmian's sword was a child's play to him. Quasi-emperor, the strength of a quasi-emperor is actually this strong? You can break my sword with a single finger? Chu Fengmian was shocked when he saw heavenly demon supremacy break the sword with a single finger. There had never been anyone who could break his sword so easily. Even old ancestor Wu couldn't withstand Chu Fengmian's sword. But now, this heavenly demon supremacy was so relaxed. He didn't even make a move after blocking Chu Fengmian's attack. Obviously, he didn't put Chu Fengmian in his eyes. Damn it, Chu Fengmian was reborn, and this was the first time he was looked down upon like this. This heavenly demon supremacy didn't intend to make a move. He seemed to be calculating Chu Fengmian's identity and wanted to know what had happened to Chu Fengmian. Although Chu Fengmian was clear about it, he couldn't just sit and wait for death. I said, with your strength, you are definitely not a match for a quasi-emperor. Even a quasi-emperor is half a step into the emperor realm. How can you be a match for him? Xing Xian said anxiously in his mind. If you go alone, you still have a chance to escape. This old man should have just stepped into the quasi-emperor realm. He is considered the weakest among the quasi-emperors. If you rush out alone, you still have a chance to escape. Go alone? Hearing Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengmian shook his head. How could Chu Fengmian abandon Luo Shi and escape? With the Demon Emperor's character, if Luo Shi really fell into his hands, she would be tortured inhumanely. Why? Are you still considering whether to escape alone? Unfortunately, neither of you can escape today. The heavenly demon's supremacy looked at Chu Fengmian's silence and laughed. Forget it. This old man doesn't want to play with you two anymore. I will capture the two of you and hand you over to the Demon Emperor. After the heavenly demon's supremacy finished his sentence, his eyes became completely different from before. Dense demonic intent started to gather around him. The demonic will cover the sky and the sun, blocking out all the light, turning the place into a land of darkness. In the darkness, the demonic will gradually condense into 10 figures, 10 heavenly demons. The demon intent around the heavenly demon supremacy turned into 10 heavenly demons. However, the 10 heavenly demons condensed by the heavenly demon supremacy were many times stronger than the ones condensed by the Demon Emperor. Go capture them. The heavenly demon supremacy looked at the 10 heavenly demons and pointed at Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. The 10 heavenly demons roared loudly, their demonic voices resounding through the heavens and earth. Then, they closed in on Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. Creation. When the 10 heavenly demons condensed, Chu Fengmian secretly used the power of his natal sword Origin. The power of creation was added to Chu Fengmian's swords. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, it was almost impossible for him to kill the 10 heavenly demons. The only thing Chu Fengmian could rely on now was the power of creation, his true trump card. The power of creation was condensed on the two swords. Chu Fengmian's body suddenly moved and rushed up into the sky. Sword danced across the sky. Countless sword shadows burst out in the sky. There were at least tens of thousands of sword shadows, slashing towards the 10 heavenly demons. Among the sword shadows, there were 2 purple sword radiances mixed in, slashing towards the 10 heavenly demons. The 10 heavenly demons that were pierced by the 2 purple sword radiances suddenly stopped in the air. Then, a crack appeared where the sword radiances pierced, tearing the 2 heavenly demons apart. This power? This is the creation, the power of creation. Boy, you can actually control the power of creation? Chapter 1032. The creation energy was the most powerful energy in the world. It was rumored that the power of creation could indeed be controlled, but no one in the 9 regions had ever taken it seriously. After all, the creation energy represented the power of the heavens and earth. It was the ultimate power of the heavens and earth. How could a human control it? However, the heavenly demon supremacy could clearly sense the existence of the creation energy from Chu Fengmian's sword light. You're indeed an anomaly. The creation energy can be controlled by a human. It seems like you're an anomaly. The heavenly demon supremacy looked at Chu Fengmian with greed in his eyes. You are indeed powerful. You are able to kill old Master Wu with your heart refinement realm cultivation. Furthermore, you possess the bloodline of the battle dragon. Now, you even possess the power of creation. If you're allowed to grow in the future, you will definitely become a huge trouble. The creation energy should not be controlled by a human. However, since it's in your hands, it means that the rules have changed. As long as I capture you, everything you have will belong to me. The same goes for your creation energy. If I can control the creation energy, my strength will definitely improve. The heavenly demon's supremacy took action personally. His figure flickered in the sky. The moment he saw Chu Fengmian using the creation energy, the heavenly demon supremacy decided to suppress Chu Fengmian personally. Controlling the creation energy had always been an illusory rumor. However, Chu Fengmian had actually done it. As long as he suppressed Chu Fengmian, everything Chu Fengmian had would belong to him. The celestial demon supremacy couldn't help but be tempted. He couldn't help but make a move. The heavenly demon supremacy's speed was extremely fast. He was even faster than the battle dragon treasure carriage. All Chu Fengmian could see was a black ray of light rapidly approaching Chu Fengyan. The moment the black light got close to Chu Fengyan, the heavenly demon supremacy threw a palm strike towards him. 10 Direction Sky Demon Palm. The remaining 8 celestial devils all merged into the celestial devil master's palm and fell toward Chu Fengyan with a loud rumble. The heavenly demon supremacy had merged the power of the remaining 8 10 Direction Sky demons into his palm. For the first time, Chu Fengyan felt an extreme sense of oppression. The power of this palm seemed to want to completely suppress Chu Fengyan's power and body. Chu Fengyan was able to kill 2 celestial devils because of the power of creation. It would not be difficult for him to deal with 1 celestial devil on his own. But now, the power of the 8 heavenly demons had merged into one and was pressing down on Chu Fengyan, suppressing his body. Chu Fengyan felt like he couldn't move at all. Every cell in his body was being suppressed by a force. He couldn't even gather his spirit power to activate his natal sword essence. At the same time, a huge black pagoda had already formed above Chu Fengyan's head and was slowly descending. Chu Fengyan knew very well that once the pitch-black pagoda descended, Chu Fengyan would truly be suppressed. He would not be able to resist at all. Although Chu Fengyan knew that the heavenly demon supremacy would definitely choose to suppress Chu Fengyan, he did not expect the heavenly demon supremacy to be so ruthless. The heavenly demon supremacy did not give Chu Fengyan the slightest chance to escape. All of Chu Fengyan's preparations seemed to be useless. 9. Little Nine's voice suddenly sounded in Chu Fengyan's mind. Chu Fengyan was being suppressed. Even the God Tree was being completely suppressed. Even Little Nine could sense the danger and seemed to be calling out to Chu Fengyan and was on the verge of bursting out. No, now's not the time. Chu Fengyan hurriedly said to Little Nine. Little Nine's strength could only be used once. If he used it now, he could temporarily escape. But facing the heavenly demon supremacy, Chu Fengyan would still die. Moreover, it was not a bad thing to fight against a quasi-emperor while under great pressure. Chu Fengyan felt that the bottleneck in his body that had been fixed for a long time was starting to loosen. Under this pressure, Chu Fengyan's bottleneck began to loosen. Invincible Battle Dragon. Chu Fengyan wholeheartedly focused on the Battle Dragon will. He pushed the power of the Battle Dragon will to the extreme. The Battle Dragon bloodline was boiling in Chu Fengyan's body. At the same time, the blood essence of the 6 Paths Demon Sect's old ancestors that Chu Fengyan had just killed were all poured into the Battle Dragon bloodline. It was burning and refining, turning into pure spiritual energy. Tempering. Under the great pressure of the heavenly demon supremacy, Chu Fengyan was tempering his strength. Chu Fengyan was clear that only by breaking through to the heavenly fate realm would he have a chance to fight against the heavenly demon supremacy. Only then would he have a chance to survive. In Chu Fengyan's body, there were more than 10 old ancestors' blood essence. Chu Fengyan had not given the divine tree the blood essence to refine. He had been waiting for this moment. Dragon diagram. Emerge. The shadow of the ancient battle dragon was condensed behind Chu Fengyan's back. The 99,000 drops of blood essence were shining brightly, erupting with extreme power. Roar. A dragon roar resounded from Chu Fengyan's mouth. Golden dragon scales appeared on his body. Suddenly, Chu Fengyan opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a glimmer of light. There was no sign of fear, only fighting spirit. Break. The golden dragon scales around Chu Fengyan shattered. However, the shattering of the dragon scales did not mean that Chu Fengyan's strength was collapsing. Instead, it was a feeling of being reborn after breaking through the bottleneck. Bang, bang, bang. Countless spiritual energy burst out from Chu Fengyan's body. Then, a new set of dragon scales condensed on Chu Fengyan's body. The dragon scales were still golden, but there was a simple and unadorned color on the surface. The change seemed to be the transformation of a young dragon into a real ancient battle dragon. A dazzling light shone from the top of Chu Fengyan's head. Heavenly fate. The moment the ray of light shone, the battle dragon shadow, formed by the 99,000 drops of ancient battle dragon essence blood behind Chu Fengmian also let out roars. Drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence were condensed. 100,000 drops. Chapter 1033. The Heavenly Fate Realm. Chu Fengmian's guess was right. 100,000 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence was the threshold. Although there was only a difference of 1,000 drops between 99,000 drops and 100,000 drops, it represented the bottleneck between the refined heart realm and the heavenly fate realm. However, the moment the 100,000 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence were condensed, Chu Fengmian's power gradually began to stagnate. After stepping into the heavenly fate realm, Chu Fengmian's cultivation level also began to slow down. It was no longer like before where he could increase his cultivation level by several levels in one go. If Chu Fengmian wanted to take another step forward, he would need more accumulation. Taking another step forward would still be difficult. Chu Fengmian's current level was truly at the Heaven's Mandate level. It wasn't due to the support of the Juk Sword Radiance. Although Chu Fengmian could also increase his cultivation level to the Heavenly Fate Realm with the help of the Juk Sword Gleam, it was completely different from when he truly stepped into the Heavenly Fate Realm. Once one stepped into the Heavenly Fate Realm, one would be able to truly control one's destiny. It was a completely different realm from the refined heart realm. Therefore, Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were also known as sovereigns. Now that Chu Fengmian had stepped into the Heavenly Fate Realm, he was even more aware of the power of the Heavenly Fate Realm. His current strength was more than 10 times stronger than before. If the power of the Juk Sword Gleam was added, it would be enough to increase Chu Fengmian's cultivation level by another level, reaching the Celestial Realm. In this way, he would only be 2 steps away from the Quasi-Emperor Realm. Although the gap was still huge, it had shrunk a lot. There might be a chance for him to survive this battle. Chu Fengmian could feel that the 10-directional sky demon palm suppression on him had weakened a lot after he had broken through to the Heavenly Fate Realm. Although the pressure it brought to Chu Fengmian was still enormous, he was no longer as desperate as before. You want to suppress me? No one in the all heavens can suppress me. Chu Fengmian roared furiously and crazily. The power in his body also began to condense and reach the limit. The spiritual energy that had been restraining Chu Fengmian was forcibly torn open, allowing Chu Fengmian to finally move. Boom! Chu Fengmian's cultivation level soared once more, reaching the 8th step of the life and death steps in the blink of an eye, reaching the celestial realm. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed coldly as he sensed the surging energy condensed to the extreme. He infused all his power into the 2 spiritual swords. At the same time, he also infused the power of creation into them. At this moment, a dazzling sword light burst out from Chu Fengmian's body. It completely tore apart the power of the 10 directions heavenly demon palm. He actually broke through it this time. The heavenly demon supremacy was slightly surprised to see Chu Fengmian's breakthrough. The murderous intent in his eyes intensified. Under such a dangerous situation, Chu Fengmian was still able to break through and even wanted to reverse the situation. This kind of person was the most difficult to deal with. But so what if he's at the Heaven's Mandate realm? To a quasi-emperor, even if Chu Fengmian had made a breakthrough, he was still as insignificant as an ant. Even if you've broken through, don't even think about escaping. In front of this emperor, you will forever be an ant. The heavenly demon's supremacy looked at Chu Fengmian and shouted angrily. Billowing demonic intent emerged from the heavenly demon supremacy's body and condensed into the complete 10 directions heavenly demons in the air. The 10 directions heavenly demons originated from the same source. The 10 directions heavenly demon palm could only be used when all the 10 directions heavenly demons were integrated into it. This time, Chu Fengmian had killed 2 of the 10 directions heavenly demon palm. This time, the complete 10 directions heavenly demon palm pressed down on Chu Fengmian. Boom! Chu Fengmian felt that he was about to be suppressed again when the palm came pressing down on him. Damn it, this old man's strength is too strong. I didn't expect that he didn't use his full strength just now. He still has some leeway. The power of this palm was 10 times stronger than the previous one. It wasn't only because the 10 Directions Heavenly Demon Palm was complete this time, but also because the Heavenly Demon Supremacy had taken the initiative to use his full strength. When he was fighting with Chu Fengyan, the Heavenly Demon Supremacy didn't even bother to use his full strength. This was the real strength of the Heavenly Demon Supremacy. Sword shattering heaven and earth. Chu Fengyan gathered spiritual energy on his sword and slashed out again. However, the power of this slash was unable to shake the 10 Directions Heavenly Demon Palm. Instead, it was gradually devoured by the power of the 10 Directions Heavenly Demon Palm. It's useless, kid. You should be honored to be able to make me use my full strength. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy looked at Chu Fengyan's struggle and said coldly. Facing a Heavenly Fate Realm kid, the Heavenly Demon Supremacy actually used his full strength. This was already beyond his expectation. Damn it! Am I really going to be suppressed by this person? I, Chu Fengyan, have experienced countless life and death situations. Am I really going to be defeated today? Chu Fengyan's eyes flashed with a trace of struggle. His mind was quietly calling for Little Nine. However, Chu Fengyan knew that even if Little Nine took action now, it would only delay the time of his death. He still couldn't escape from the Heavenly Demon Supremacy. Kid, I know you still have some trump cards. Use all of them. Otherwise, it will be too late when you are suppressed. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy looked at Chu Fengyan and said with a mocking expression. He knew that Chu Fengyan still had some trump cards. But so what? Even if Chu Fengyan used all of his trump cards, he still wouldn't be able to overturn the situation. At this critical moment, the sky was suddenly distorted, and then it was torn apart and suddenly shattered. At the same time, a blue sword radiance flashed out and slashed towards Chu Fengyan. The target wasn't Chu Fengyan, but the 10 Directions Heavenly Demon Palm in front of him. The moment the blue sword glow flashed, the 10 Directions Sky Demon Palm was formed into countless pieces of ice. The demonic will was completely frozen by the ice and stopped in the air. Ice Lotus Sword Technique. The moment Chu Fengyan saw the blue sword radiance, his eyes shone with a strange light. Yuli, the moment the blue sword radiance was shot out, a white figure walked out from the void. It had been a long time since they last met. Hanyu Li's aura was completely different from before. Her every move was noble and respectable. Chapter 1034. Before Chu Fengyan left the Cloud Feather Palace, he had asked Elder Yun about Hanyu Li's condition. According to Elder Yun, Hanyu Li was about to awaken and complete the inheritance. However, Chu Fengyan didn't expect Hanyu Li to rush over to the Six Paths Demon Gate without any regard for the danger. Since Hanyu Li had rushed over, it meant that the inheritance of the Cloud Feather Palace had been completed. The Cloud Feather Palace was a colossus that was even more powerful than the Six Paths Demon Gate. The inheritance of the Cloud Feather Palace was comparable to the inheritance of a demon emperor. Suddenly, Chu Fengyan took a closer look at Hanyu Li and sensed her aura. The ninth step of the life and death steps, the immortality realm. After completing the inheritance of the Cloud Feather Palace, Hanyu Li had entered the ninth step of the life and death steps, the immortality realm. She was only one step away from becoming a quasi-emperor on the same level as the Heavenly Demon Supremacy. While Chu Fengyan was still in shock, Hanyu Li had already arrived beside Chu Fengyan. She could tell that Chu Fengyan was in a precarious situation. This was especially so when she saw Chu Fengyan's injuries. Suddenly, Hanyu Li's eyes turned red. Murderous intent surged from Hanyu Li's body. How dare you hurt him? Hanyu Li looked at the Heavenly Demon Supremacy with a murderous gaze. Even Luoshi was stunned when she saw Hanyu Li's change. Hanyu Li looked at Chu Fengyan with a gentle gaze. However, her murderous intent was even more terrifying than the disciples of the Six Paths Demon Gate. You've always been the one protecting me. This time, it's my turn to protect you. Hanyu Li looked at Chu Fengyan and said gently. In the past, Chu Fengyan had always protected Hanyu Li. This time, it was Hanyu Li's turn. Oh, you're just a little guy in the immortal realm, and you want to save someone for me? The Heavenly Demon Supremacy was surprised to see Hanyu Li, but when he saw Han Yueli's cultivation, his face remained calm, and he didn't seem to care at all. To him, one more Immortal Realm warrior wasn't a big deal. Although the Immortal Realm was only one step away from the Quasi-Emperor Realm, the gap was so huge that it was impossible to cross. Profound Frostbody. I didn't expect another genius to appear in the 9 regions this time. However, it's good that we can capture you and make you the Demon Queen of the 6 Paths Demon Gate. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy looked at Han Yueli and laughed. You 3 brats, you're going to stay in the 6 Paths Demonic Gate today. As he spoke, the Celestial Demon Supremacy attacked again. Billowing demonic intent filled the air. Countless demonic figures appeared in the sky, and blood-red demonic claws extended from the dark clouds. Let's join hands and fight our way out. Chu Fengyan said to Han Yueli and Luo Shi when he saw the Heavenly Demon Supremacy attacking. Han Yueli's appearance gave Chu Fengyan a boost of confidence. With the addition of Han Yueli, their chances of escaping unscathed were even higher. There was even a possibility that the Heavenly Demon Supremacy would pay the price. Chu Fengyan had never been forced into a desperate situation like this. If it didn't make the Heavenly Demon Supremacy pay the price, he wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. All right, let's rush out. I've already broken the seal of this small world. As long as we leave the 6 demon peaks, we can escape into the void. At that time, this old man won't be able to catch up to us. Han Yueli said, let's attack him first and find an opportunity to rush out. All right, Chu Fengyan nodded. He had secretly accumulated a large amount of spiritual energy and integrated it into his swords. Heaven-breaking dual swords. The 2 swords, which had accumulated spiritual energy to the limit, slashed towards the sky. The 2 swords instantly cut down countless bloody hands that were falling down from the sky. As for Han Yueli and Luo Shi, they also used their own methods to continuously shatter the bloody hands that filled the sky. Attack him. Even Chu Fengyan and Han Yueli couldn't withstand the power of the bloody hands. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy was a quasi-emperor who had already comprehended the Emperor Realm. He had the Emperor's aura, and every move he made was extremely suppressive to any cultivator who hadn't comprehended the Emperor Realm. You still want to resist? I'd like to see how long you can resist. Countless bloody hands were shattered, but the Heavenly Demon Supremacy didn't care. With a flick of his sleeve, 10 times the number of bloody hands fell from the sky. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy's spiritual energy was so strong that it was almost endless. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy also locked onto Chu Fengyan the moment the blood hands landed on him. For the Heavenly Demon Supremacy, Luo, she wasn't much of a threat, but Han Yueli was obviously easier to deal with than Chu Fengyan. He directly blasted towards Chu Fengyan with his palm. The spiritual energy in this palm was no longer as fierce as before. This emperor has changed his mind. I'll kill you first. Anyway, this emperor can still get your treasures after killing you. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy took the initiative to kill Chu Fengyan. He didn't want to suppress Chu Fengyan like before. The ferocious and overbearing spiritual energy contained in his palm wanted to kill Chu Fengyan directly. Suppressing a person was 10 times more difficult than killing one. Now that Han Yueli had appeared, the Heavenly Demon Supremacy felt a little uneasy, so much so that he directly wanted to kill Chu Fengyan. Although he couldn't get many benefits from killing Chu Fengyan, it was enough to take away most of Chu Fengyan's treasures. With the Demon Emperor's greed in mind, the Heavenly Demon Supremacy became more cautious. At the crucial moment, he directly used his killing move. Die boy! The Heavenly Demon Supremacy's figure rushed in front of Chu Fengyan in an instant and blasted his palm towards Chu Fengyan's chest. The Heavenly Demon Supremacy didn't want to give Chu Fengyan any chance to kill at such a close distance. He wanted to crush Chu Fengyan on the spot. Even if Chu Fengyan encountered many difficulties, he could only die. However, the moment the Heavenly Demon Supremacy approached Chu Fengyan, the corners of Chu Fengyan's mouth curled into a smile. Good timing. Suddenly, Chu Fengyan communicated with his mind, and a figure suddenly appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. This figure was little Nine. It was only the size of Chu Fengmian's chest and looked inconspicuous. Chapter 1035. Little Nine's sudden appearance was completely out of the heavenly demon supremacy's expectation. The heavenly demon supremacy did not see little Nine's appearance clearly, but he could feel little Nine's aura and snorted coldly. "Humph. A mere demonic beast. I thought you had some trump cards. This emperor will first kill this demonic beast of yours, then kill you." The heavenly demon supremacy did not intend to retract his power and attacked little Nine directly. A mere demonic beast? Chu Fengmian sneered when he heard the heavenly demon supremacy's words. "Fine, I will let you have a taste of the power of an Sciention divine beast." Even a young Sciention divine beast was still an Sciention divine beast. Nine! Little Nine's eyes were filled with anger when he heard the word demonic beast. To him, calling him a demonic beast was a blasphemy against his dignity as an Sciention divine beast. Swoosh! Suddenly, little Nine's body accelerated. It was so fast that Chu Fengmian could not see it clearly. Little Nine's body collided with the heavenly demon supremacy's palm. Boom! There was a deafening sound, and Chu Fengmian was forced to retreat. The heavenly demon supremacy's palm was torn apart by the collision of their powers. In the next step, little Nine's body slammed into the heavenly demon supremacy's chest. Boom! The billowing demonic intent was completely shattered. The heavenly demon supremacy's body fell from the sky, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Puff! It was not ordinary blood, but the essence blood of the heavenly demon supremacy. It represented the source of his power. A quasi-emperor was forced to spit out essence blood when he fought against little Nine's power. Little Nine was not afraid of anyone. Even a quasi-emperor could not match up to him in terms of power. What kind of demonic beast is this? After being sent flying, the sky demon supremacy's mind went blank. He was a quasi-emperor. Even with his full power as a quasi-emperor, he was still sent flying. Especially when he collided with little Nine. When he felt little Nine's power for the first time, the heavenly demon supremacy felt that his body was about to be crushed. He even felt death approaching. If this power hadn't only appeared for a split second, the celestial demon supremacy might have perished on the spot. What? Han Yueli and Luo, she were stunned when they saw heavenly demon sovereign being sent flying. They hadn't known about little Nine's existence. Originally, when they saw Chu Fengmian being stared at by the heavenly demon supremacy, the two of them felt that something was amiss. However, they did not expect such a turn of events. However, the two of them quickly reacted. Now that the celestial demon sovereign had been sent flying and was heavily injured, this was the best opportunity. Without any hesitation, the two of them attacked the heavenly demon supremacy with their spiritual energy and their swords. The target of these attacks was the celestial demon supremacy's chest. Heavenly Devil High Lord's chest had been smashed by little Nine, which was now Heavenly Devil High Lord's greatest weakness. Just now, Chu Fengmian was thinking about how to use little Nine to injure the celestial demon supremacy. Little Nine's strength could only be used once. The second time it was used, it would be much weaker. The celestial demon supremacy actually wanted to attack Chu Fengmian at close range. This was the best opportunity for Chu Fengmian. Of course, he would seize it. Using little Nine's strength, he would directly injure the celestial demon supremacy. Go back and rest. You've already done very well. Chu Fengmian looked at little Nine, who was a little shaky. With a thought, he recalled little Nine back into his body and returned to the divine tree to sleep. Little Nine had already done its best. Now, Chu Fengmian could only rely on himself. Chu Fengmian's figure moved and directly chased after the celestial demon supremacy. The celestial demon supremacy, who was in the quasi-emperor realm, was originally an invincible figure to Chu Fengmian and the others. If the celestial demon supremacy was not injured, even if Chu Fengmian used all his strength, he would not be able to shake the celestial demon supremacy. However, it was different now. The heavenly demon supremacy was already heavily injured by little Nine. His chest was his weak point. Of course, Chu Fumian would not let go of this opportunity to beat a drowning dog. Chu Fumian followed Hanuel Li and Luo Shi's attacks and rushed towards the celestial demon supremacy. This time, it was not as simple as just injuring the celestial demon supremacy. He wanted to take drastic measures and directly kill the celestial demon supremacy. Damn it! Damn it! A group of little guys, how dare you injure me? I will kill you all. Today, all of you will die. Heavenly demon true body. Everyone is a demon. The celestial demon supremacy's face was extremely ferocious in the face of all this. A huge demonic intent condensed from his body. The moment the demonic intent condensed, the celestial demon supremacy's body began to change. His body began to expand. Layers of black scales grew continuously from the celestial demon supremacy's body. The injury on the celestial demon supremacy's chest recovered in an instant. His aura also rose several times. Heavenly demon true body. This is the celestial demon supremacy's true body. Chu Fumian's face changed drastically when he saw the changes in the celestial demon supremacy. The heavenly demon true body was the celestial demon supremacy's final trump card. Under the current situation, the celestial demon supremacy was completely enraged and summoned his true body. This time, the celestial demon supremacy was really angry. For him, dealing with a few little guys was a piece of cake. He did not expect that he would be forced into such a situation. He originally wanted to suppress Chu Fumian, but he failed one after another. Instead, Chu Fumian's strength increased, and he suddenly broke through. As a quasi-emperor, he was forced into such a situation and had to summon the heavenly demon true body. This was simply an insult to the celestial demon supremacy. It was an insult to a quasi-emperor like him. When the heavenly demon true body was summoned, the strength of the celestial demon supremacy's main body increased by more than 10 times. The sky was filled with demonic intent. If one came into contact with even a little of this demonic intent, it would bring about a calamity. You guys go quickly. I will cover the rear. Chu Fumian made a prompt decision and said to Luo Shi and Hanuel Li. The celestial demon supremacy took the initiative to summon the heavenly demon true body. It would take some time for him to turn into a demon. Even if the celestial demon supremacy turned into a true demon, he would not be able to chase after them. I have a way to delay him. You guys go first. Chu Fumian said hurriedly. Let's go. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.